What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode 3 of the Silver and Gold. I'm Josh.
And I'm Mike.
Today, we're going to be discussing a couple current news things that are going on with both the Raiders and the 49ers, as always. And then we're going to be talking about some position breakdowns and then talking about our favorite current players on each team. So, first, we're going to get started off with bad business. Mike, do you want to tell the audience what's going on with this?
Yeah. Basically, Josh Jacobs, I think it was yesterday. Today's the 21st. Tweets that he just tweets bad business. That's all he tweets. And Raider fans go crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's going on is obviously he was franchise tagged and he has not signed the franchise tag. And I think most people would expect him not to sign the franchise tag. And it could simply be about that. My best guess, I'd say, would be that he was tweeting that as a subtweet towards the Raiders in response to perhaps an offer that they gave him. Or it could be the fact that they're not offering him anything. We don't know. I haven't heard any insiders say anything specific. I've heard that talks are ongoing, but we don't know to what extent. Honestly, I feel like I've heard more about Saquon Barkley's contract talks with the Giants than I have with Josh Jacobs and the Raiders. So, I think that
that's saying a lot.
Anything. Yeah,
that's saying a lot because you're actually a Raider fan and you're plugged into the team and what's going on at all times. And Saquon Barkley is all the way in the East Coast in New York, and you're hearing more out of his camp. So,
yeah. I mean, I think Saquon Barkley's the bigger name, even though Josh Jacobs he was the leading rusher in the NFL last season. He had the better season. Granted, Saquon Barkley had a very good comeback season because, as fantasy football players, he looked like he was going a little downhill. His upside was starting to look a little, suspect because he was coming off of injuries the past couple of years. And he comes back this year and he plays well, very well,
Mm-hmm.
And, but again, Josh Jacobs was the leading rusher in the NFL on a contract year after the Raiders had not picked up his fifth-year option the previous offseason. So, he proved himself and he deserves a contract. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where, a lot of this is stemming is, hey, I was the best running back last year. I deserve a top-end contract. So, I love Jacobs. I love him as a Raider. I appreciate what he does on the field very much, and I would love to see him on the Raiders for years to come. I also know that the running back position financially in the NFL, as far as longevity and stuff like that, is interesting to say the least. You have positions like wide receiver, D lineman, and it's obviously quarterbacks, right? Who they last a long time. Whereas running backs, their primes are at a younger age, typically, than most other positions, because
Mm-hmm.
all they do is just run at full speed and get hit at full contact all the time whenever they have the ball. And if they're a bell cow running back like Jacobs, they might get 50% of the offense's touches. Like usually when you think of an offense, you think of the quarterback and him touching the ball every single play. But sometimes, especially last season with the Raiders, with how inconsistent the passing game was and how consistently well the run game was, he was getting 50% of the snaps, in his hands. So, it's hard to see. It's hard for the team from a strategic financial standpoint to predict how long his prime is going to last. Um,
Mhm.
so I see both sides of it, but you know, I'm typically going to root for the player when they play this well. Um,
Mhm.
obviously, I want what's best for the Raiders, but I also want 28 on this team. Actually, I
Yeah,
shouldn't say 28. I'm sorry. He changed his number to 8. So, but go ahead.
he did.
Yeah, that's another
Well,
thing.
God damn it, I didn't update the thumbnail. Um,
It's fine.
but yeah, I guess it's just more Josh Jacobs disrespect. That's probably what the bad business is. I was gonna say, like, how do we know that he isn't just saying bad business about like a local donut shop?
It could
Like
be.
maybe they served him a bad donut. Like we're just overreacting to his tweet. But in all seriousness, I think it's pretty clear that he's talking about the frustrations with the contract negotiations. I know last offseason, uh, this the same thing was happening with the 49ers and Debo Samuel. And Debo
Mm,
Samuel would tweet cryptic tweets as well.
yes,
And
I
then
remember
I
that.
know that Debo had an exchange with Grant Cohn and on Twitter before he blocked him, and Debo was like, "Bruh, not everything's about football, blah blah blah," and it was just kind of funny. It's like, well,
Yeah,
don't tweet things where people are going to interpret it as football if you really care. It's like, the best thing is probably to just keep it to yourself. And I mean, but Debo got paid, so it worked. It worked. And so I don't think Raider fans really have anything to worry about because, I mean, as we saw, Debo said he wanted to leave. He wanted to be traded. He got paid. He stayed with the 49ers. So if you're a Raider fan and you really want Josh Jacobs to stay, him tweeting out cryptic tweets really doesn't mean anything. Like maybe he's unhappy right now, but that doesn't mean that he can't get extended.
yeah.
So, um, one thing I want to touch on is you were saying that uh, you were talking about like running backs getting paid. I mean, to me, I think that players should always just try to get paid. Like that's what they're in the NFL for. That's
Yeah.
what they've been working their whole life towards, and they want to build that generational wealth for their families. And so you really can't fault the players for trying to do that. I mean, you can be upset like when they leave and they go chase money and then they're unhappy in the rest of their careers because it's like they they chose they chose maybe a situation that wasn't as good for them
Mm,
uh, because of the money, and now they're complaining when maybe they had like another opportunity available. Um, but I personally like for the 49ers in particular or like any team, I don't really think it's smart to pay running backs top tier money. Uh, and I know I'm saying that with the 49ers paying Debo Samuel practically as a running back, like uh,
and
well,
also Christian
they're
McCaffrey.
paying him like quarterback money, you know, for practically playing running back, and then they're also paying Christian McCaffrey, so it's like what 40 million right there in just those two players.
Right.
Um, but what I will say is that the most important position really is the offensive line, and if they can create openings, as long as you don't have like just a pencil dick back there, like you're gonna get you're gonna get production out of the running back position. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a fun little NFL Street insider right there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, really, it also stems like I had a football coach in high school. He would always like you know when it would come to like skinny players, like he would be like, "Oh, quit acting like a pencil dick," something like that, or like quit being
yeah.
slap dicks. Um,
Gosh.
But I mean, do you have anything else that you want to say about the whole bad business thing? I think that's going to kind of be the theme of the next topic.
Yeah. No, I don't really have anything else specifically. I'd say, it's funny we mentioned that was totally unplanned, but we mentioned, Josh Jacobs changing his number to 8. For all we know, his bad business tweet could be about the fact maybe I shouldn't say fact, but I'm pretty sure it is a fact that if a player changes their number and they've already been a different number for this team, for their team, they have to buy out the jerseys in that old number that are still like up for sale. Maybe it's whether it's through the team or probably the NFL store online or something. I don't know how it works, but when you're probably a high selling jersey, that costs a lot, but I highly doubt that that's what Bad Business, the tweet, is about. Right. But just a funny little detail, but he's about to get paid. So I guess he can afford it,
I mean, for all we know, Josh Jacobs maybe just tweeted it. When did he tweet it? Today?
I'm pretty sure it was yesterday. Let me see. I can quickly find this out.
Okay. While you pull that up, I'm just going to quickly do something. Because I was going to say, if he tweeted it today, then it's entirely possible that maybe he's just not a Pikmin fan, and maybe he's just not a Mario fan, so he didn't really like the Nintendo Direct today, so it was bad business.
You never know. He tweeted it yesterday.
Oh, so he read 20th, the leaks, and it was bad business. That's what it was.
Right. Yeah. Yesterday, just afternoon, 12:19. So our Western. So, but I'd say that's really it for that topic, and we can move on.
All right. Let's transition into a little 49er news. So we've got NFL insider Adam Schefter believing that Sam Darnold has the edge on Trey Lance. And so Adam Schefter was on Pat McAfee, on the Pat McAfee show today. And, he was just sort of giving his insight on, the 49ers draft when they traded up. And he was talking about how 49ers, originally intended to select Mac Jones with that pick, but they gave themselves ample time, to evaluate the other quarterbacks, and they ended up falling in love with Trey Lance. And so, I think the main thing that I want to stick to, or the main points, is that, one, he expects Brock Purdy to be the starter, which I think everybody has been saying. So it's not necessarily news. But when he talks about the quarterback 2 competition, he says that he thinks Darnold has the advantage over Lance. I know I probably just talked into a circle right there, but I really don't like this, and it's no disrespect to Adam Schefter. This is just what he's hearing. I don't like that he's probably hearing that, Sam Darnold is is doing better. I've heard like the stats coming out of training camp, like from the beat writers. And it doesn't seem like Darnold is necessarily taking a step ahead of Lance, or Lance is taking a step ahead of Darnold. It kind of seems like, they're both kind of just having, solid camps so far. But I think that the reason why I don't like hearing it, that Darnold has the edge, I think has to do with the fact that the 49ers, they've already invested in Trey Lance, and he's still under contract. Not only did they invest in Trey Lance, they invested heavily in him. He was supposed to be the future. You were the chosen one.
Yeah.
But let's not forget, Sam Darnold has struggled everywhere he's been so far.
Yeah.
And to say that this guy is beating out, or, has the green light to beat out the player that was just the number 3 overall pick 2 years ago, it's bad business, man. To spend 3 first-round picks on a kid, and you don't give him an opportunity in his rookie season, and then I mean, it just makes me upset. Like, I don't know, to think about as a fan. I believe that Trey Lance will be better than Sam Darnold. There's no question about that. I think that he just has to get some NFL experience. I think, I mean, but that's not even a high bar to set. Sam Darnold has a good arm. He just makes poor decisions, and he says that he sees ghosts.
And he gets mono.
Yeah. Mike, do you have thoughts while I just kind of gather mine for a second?
Yeah. Well, I kind of laughed and I was waiting for you to say it. But, you mentioned Trey Lance being this former 3rd overall pick, and I was thinking in my head, so is Sam Darnold, But it's different. This is a guy who's been in the league at least 2 more years than Lance. And like you said, he's failed not at 1, but 2 stops. He had, I would say he had a worse opportunity than, this is a bad comparison, but he had a worse opportunity in New York than Derek Carr ever had in Oakland and Vegas, And I think with the Panthers, it was a similar thing where that was a team on the decline, and they ended up with they earned the 9th overall pick, but they traded for the 1st, because they need a new quarterback, and Sam Darnold helped improving that, But I also think that this Shanahan offense is very quarterback friendly, which kind of goes both ways for this conversation because, yes, that's good for Darnold, but also, like you said, Trey Lance hasn't had, or I should say you alluded to, Trey Lance hasn't had much field time. All he needs is to get out on the field, and if this is such a quarterback-friendly offense, maybe it works out for him. He has the mobile ability, and I would say he has just as good of an arm, if not a better arm, than Sam Darnold. So if he can utilize those tools as a prospect, he's clearly, the better prospect.
Mm-hmm. I just want to chime in again. Trey Lance has played 4 games. Sam Darnold has played what? Like anywhere between 25 and 50 games in the NFL at this point.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
How are you going to bury a kid that you moved up to get? How are you going to just bury him in the depth chart when last year you were saying that he was better than Brock Purdy? He was your starting quarterback. If Brock Purdy was really that good in practice and you had Trey Lance here, why wasn't Purdy starting all along? You should be able to evaluate that in practice.
Right. Well, yeah, it's hard. I think that's difficult because I think there comes a point for a coaching staff where it's like, all right, we have to rally behind this quarterback, right? So it's like they put all the chips in for Lance, and then his first season it's Garoppolo, and then Garoppolo was injured coming into last season, right? Or was it just boom, period, Lance has earned this job. It's his to lose going into last offseason. I forget.
Going into last offseason, Garoppolo was supposed to be gone. They were going to trade. They were going to trade.
He was coming off the injury, NFC Championship, all that stuff.
Right. He had the shoulder surgery, and the 49ers couldn't trade him because of I don't think anybody wanted to trade for him, and I don't think he could have passed a physical. Right?
Yeah.
And so Trey Lance was QB1. He was finally going to get his opportunity, and then Kyle Shanahan said, "Develop him as a passer? No, forget that. I'll use him as a fullback." And then ran him into the ground. It was bound to happen eventually, but I really didn't like the play calling that they used for Lance. And people always talk about how easy the Shanahan offense can be for quarterbacks. And so why doesn't he just draw it up the same way that he did for Brock? Or why doesn't he draw it up the same way that he did for Jimmy? Like, I get you want to utilize his strengths, but you have to build him up as a passer, because even if he does have those strengths, he's not going to be any better than Taysom Hill. No, seriously. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
And honestly, at this point, if Brock's going to be the starter, the best case scenario, if you're going to have Brock as the starter, is to use Trey Lance as like, have a Taysom Hill kind of package, because it'll get Lance the reps that he needs to get comfortable with the game, and it'll keep the defense on their toes, and you'll probably be able to run the ball a little bit better.
Yeah. I think, I mean, that was a thing that seemed clear that they were trying to do 2 years ago when Garoppolo was still the starter, but they would have Lance come in for like, those Taysom Hill sort of things, which at first, I'm sure for Niner fans, it was like, oh yeah, let's get this guy on the field. And then you realize like, wait, this is all he's doing. I don't know about this, and then now we're here, right?
The first passing touchdown in 2021 was by Trey Lance.
Mm-hmm.
They literally brought him into the red zone offense, and he threw a touchdown. I think it was to Trent Sherfield, if I remember correctly. It was against the Detroit Lions. And I think that the plan probably was to go with the two quarterback system, but Trey Lance broke his finger against the Raiders, and apparently he couldn't squeeze the ball with his pointer. I think it was his index finger, and so he had to try and throw the he had to try and learn how to throw the football without his index finger. And I mean, for those of you at home, just try and think about throwing a football without it. I don't think you're going to make it spiral very well. And so I mean, I'm not trying to make excuses, but I just think that it's very unfortunate the way that the situation has unfolded thus far for his career. And I don't think that after 4 games, the 49ers should panic and flock to Sam Darnold as their backup quarterback, because one thing we know about this 49ers team is that they have a head coach, or maybe it's just not the head coach, right? People argue whether Shanahan plays a part in the quarterbacks getting hurt. He's the common denominator, I will say. The quarterbacks just don't stay healthy on the 49ers. And so a very realistic possibility is that Brock Purdy goes down, and Sam Darnold, who in this scenario is your quarterback 2, goes in and takes over, right? Sam Darnold is on a 1-year deal. And if you have the offense cater around Sam Darnold and he plays well, guess what? Quarterbacks are not cheap. And you're going to have a situation similar to Jimmy Garoppolo in 2017 when they made him the highest paid quarterback after 5 games. Right? I mean, this is just hypothetical, but it's like something like I think is very easy to see way ahead of time.
Yeah, I mean, so Sam Darnold is on a 1-year deal right now?
He's on a 1-year deal, I believe.
Okay. And then
correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but
yeah, and then Trey Lance is going into his 3rd or 4th?
He's going into his third year.
Okay, so that means
5-year rookie deal.
Well,
4
years an option
with a fifth year option.
Which that is something that's key for this season is, can he prove to be worth that 5th-year option? Because next offseason is when they get to decide on that.
Mm-hmm.
Before his final 4th season, they have to decide on. That's what happened to Jacobs, to kind of take it full circle for a moment. But, the Raiders decided, no, this new, regime came in. They have to decide immediately on Jacobs' deal. And it's like, well, we're going to say no because it's a running back, and then, highest rusher last season. But as far as Trey Lance, he has to go out there and prove that he's worth that. And if he doesn't, it's just 2 years left on his deal. So you have Darnold with 1 year left, Lance with 2 years left, and I believe Purdy with 3 years left, because last season was his rookie year on a 4-year rookie contract.
Mhm.
I understand in the way that like lays out for the Niners. I understand why Purdy is kind of their lead guy, mostly because of how he was on the field, but also you have 3 cheap years of him under contract. That's very good to like keep your core with your highly paid running back and Debo Samuel and players like that. I mean Trent Williams, right? Highest paid left tackle, I think. Maybe not anymore, but
At the time, he was.
yeah. And then
I think he
all these
got.
players.
I think he got 500,000 more than the second highest paid left tackle, just to be the highest paid.
Right. So having these young quarterbacks on pretty cheap deals, that's paying dividends right now for this roster. And like you said, if Sam Darnold becomes that guy that's like, oh, he might actually be our starter in a hypothetical situation, that gets thrown out the window if you have to sign him next offseason. I should say, having so many big contracts gets thrown out of the window if you have to sign a quarterback next offseason. So that's
Mhm.
why financially and strategically, Brock Purdy makes the most sense. But as far as investments, previous investments, I mean, Trey Lance, those 3 first-round picks, it's like, yeah, I don't understand. I mean, if in practice it's proving to Shanahan Trey Lance isn't working out, then I get it. But, and also bear in mind, like Adam Schefter tweeting this or whatever he did on the Pat McAfee show, like maybe he just got this as a minor tidbit and he just ran with it because there's not much news to talk about right now, right?
Mhm.
Um,
I
but I
mean,
don't
it
know. I
could.
just
I don't remember if it was just his opinion, but I would assume that a guy who's an NFL insider, like he is, and he's typically pretty spot on.
yeah, he knows some
Um,
things.
he hears from people within the organization. Then again, dude, it's like the 49ers, I mean, under this regime, they just contradict themselves all the time. So it's like
Yeah,
you really don't know who to trust. Like he was pretty adamant that the Niners were taking Mac Jones, and everybody was pretty adamant. Oh, the pick was going to be Mac Jones, and
yeah,
then the Niners were like, "Haha, fuck you." It was Trey Lance, and then now they're stuck with a player that they clearly don't trust, and I
or
mean,
maybe they're trying. Maybe they're trying to push. I don't know. You know,
mhm.
I think
Well, okay.
my last thing that I'll say about this. Hold that
I
thought just one
I
minute.
I just I
Go,
just want to fix what I said. Not that they don't
go.
trust Lance, they just don't publicly support him. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, I get that, and it also all of these rumors and insider info that comes out is very anti-Lance. So yeah, totally.
That's what gets
Um,
views.
yeah. Um, I just if Darnold becomes this guy, whether he's the quarterback too or somehow gets a shot to become the starter somehow, which I doubt, he's again final year in the contract. It just strategically doesn't make sense. I mean, whatever's best for the team this season, go for it. But I would like to think that GMs try to like plan accordingly. So like, if I guess this is less against about Darnold and more about Lance. If the GM for the John Lynch, that's his name, right? If
John Lynch.
he decides I want to trade one of these quarterbacks and give value because we messed up with the Trey Lance pick, we got to get something back, right? If you're not playing Trey Lance, you're not going to get any value for him. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're trying to trade Sam Darnold, guess what? You only have until week 8 or whatever the deadline is to do it because he's on a 1-year deal. Unless he is on a 2-year deal, I'm not sure, but if he's on a 1-year deal, you can't trade him. There's no way. So there's no major benefit unless he's actually a game changer for the Niners this season. He just makes sense as
Also,
a third stringer to me.
I don't think they would bring Darnold along for the ride if he was just going to be trade bait because one,
Yeah.
I don't think that this team needs necessarily like low end draft picks or whatever you would get for Sam Darnold.
Mm.
This team needs probably a little bit more cap room wherever they can, save it. And I think that they spent like, I think $3 million on Sam Darnold, and that's, with the 49ers being as strapped for cap space as they are, I mean, that can go into, I don't know, a solid defensive lineman.
Right.
But I guess if the Niners' plan is, I mean, you have to trust the backup quarter. I mean, typically teams are kind of fucked when they're on their backup quarterback anyway.
Yeah.
But if you're telling me that the best case scenario, if Brock Purdy were to go down, which he's not even healthy yet, so one of these two backups might start the season. If you're telling me that the best case scenario is that if Brock Purdy were to go down, Sam Darnold is going to take this win now team and win a Super Bowl, I tell you, you're smoking crack. Has Sam Darnold ever been to the playoffs?
No way. He's been on the Jets and the Panthers.
Has he ever had a winning season?
Highly doubtful.
Yeah, it's like, all right.
And again, he had some bad scenarios with those teams, but still, like, he played pretty badly.
That's like coming to the 49ers and saying plan A was Kirk Cousins. Like, yeah. Okay, you didn't want, like, to take a look at, maybe Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson. No, I want Kirk Cousins.
Right.
Like, you got to figure out the quarterback first, then build the team around it, because then they just don't know who to rally behind, and it kind of makes it weird. And then you're always, I mean, content creators are making hella fucking money. How about that? It's like the media is making hella money because they can spin any kind of story that they want. So,
yeah, I guess I'll finish with this. I don't mean to say that they only signed Darnold to trade one of the two other quarterbacks. Like, that's not why teams sign quarterbacks. Like, you look at the Niners and their playoff history the past 2 seasons, they went down because the quarterback went down,
Mm-hmm.
So having a good third quarterback is very wise. I think that's the reason why they got Sam Darnold. But I also think at some point something has to happen with Trey Lance. You can't put all that investment in him just for him to never get the real opportunity.
Yeah, he would be the biggest bust in history. And I don't even think it would be entirely his fault.
I still think it would be probably Jamarcus Russell, but it
would be
Jamarcus
Russell played 25 games. If Trey Lance gets buried after 4 games, I mean, it's hard to argue with that.
I think maybe the way to
Jamarcus Russell was one first-round pick.
He was the
Trey
first
Lance
overall
was 3.
pick. Yeah, I get that, but like Jamarcus Russell was genuinely horrible, whereas Trey Lance, it was just like he never got his shot and he got injured. Like, I don't know if I consider him a bust at the magnitude of Jamarcus Russell. Jamarcus Russell was like...
No. Jamarcus Russell was a bust, but it was his fault. I'm saying Lance would probably be the bigger bust just because of the draft capital, but it's not his fault. He didn't choose for the 49ers to move up 3 first-round picks. He didn't choose to go to a win now team. He didn't choose to be on the bench. He didn't choose to have the COVID year.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, probably. I mean, I've heard people say that he should have stayed in college, maybe, but his plan was to go to the NFL and make a bunch of money. That's what it's all about. If he goes back to college and he tears his ACL, he loses his rookie contract and he might go undrafted.
Mm.
So he secured the bag, got drafted 3rd overall, and then just was not given the chance. It's just the wrong team drafted him.
Yeah. We are into full-blown Trey Lance mode.
We are into full-blown Trey Lance mode.
Yeah.
But
shall we move on?
I think we should move on. But the last thing I'll say to wrap up the Schefter thing is Schefter's not in the building. So he may hear some stuff. But until Sam Darnold is officially ahead of Trey Lance on the depth chart, then yeah, I don't think that you really have to. I mean, you take it for what it's worth. And speaking of the 49ers quarterback depth chart, I think we pretty much just kind of ran through it, but I'll just kind of summarize. Brock Purdy, if he was healthy right now, he would be quarterback one. I don't know when he's going to be healthy, and I think that if you go the entire offseason without much practice, I think they should just ease you in. And, I mean, either way, it was a pretty bad injury to his elbow. They should ease him in anyway. If that's truly your franchise guy, then don't rush him back because you could potentially fuck up the rest of his career.
Let me stop you right there. Because
no, you listen here, mister.
Just because this will become a single video.
No, I mean, we can bunch it in with the last one.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
If it's not long.
Cut it out. No, but
stop the ship.
Just to land the ship. Just to kind of introduce our next segment. We are moving into our positional breakdowns, team by team. Today on this podcast, we're going to do the offenses for both teams. We're going to go position by position. It's not going to be too in-depth or anything, but we just want to kind of go over how the roster's looking. And then at the end of this video, we'll get into some fun rankings.
Yeah, so I think the quarterback position, as complicated as we just made it in the previous segment, Brock Purdy is currently rehabbing his elbow, and he is currently the quarterback one. And Trey Lance and Sam Darnold are currently battling it out. Well, I guess they're not still doing OTAs right now, huh? In minicamp?
I think they just ended like last week or something.
Oh,
we're waiting for
Trey Lance is at tight end university throwing to some tight ends. So
that,
hopefully that'll do good for him. Maybe he can meet some people, and I mean, he's going to be with Josh Allen. Maybe Josh Allen can give him some advice, right?
Yeah.
Josh Allen, his career at first, didn't it start kind of rough?
His first season, he didn't look that good. And then he went to the playoffs, I think his second season against the Texans, and he had a really good game. And I remember a lot of people weren't like raving about him. And I was like, this dude went off. Like, I think the way that not to go off on a tangent, just really quick. I think Josh Allen in year 2 was looked at the way that people look at Daniel Jones right now. But Daniel Jones is in year 5, so it's different. Anyways, continue. Niners.
I remember the first year that Josh Allen made the playoffs. I forget who they were playing, but it was, the Bills had a playoff game. And I remember thinking, man, this kid single-handedly lost his team that playoff game. Like, he single-handedly probably got them there.
Well,
but
yeah, maybe I was thinking of what you were talking about.
I mean, he really blew it, I think, in that playoff game. But I think Josh Allen has grown from that. And I think that we can see the same type of growth if the 49ers just stop playing around and flirting with Sam Darnold taking Lance's spot. But, so currently right now, Brock Purdy 1, Trey Lance 2, Sam Darnold 3. Or I guess you could say...
Sorry, there's no other quarterbacks on the roster?
There is. It's Brandon Allen. But he's Brandon Allen. But, knowing this team, Brandon Allen will be the franchise quarterback next year.
You never know. I mean,
yeah,
coming into last season, if we had done this breakdown, we might not have even talked about Brock Purdy. Oh yeah, they drafted this guy with the last pick. Like, who cares? You never I think the moral of this segment should be some of these guys we aren't going to know much about. We're getting close to getting into training camp. You never know. We can only hope that they can turn into a player like Brock Purdy.
Mm-hmm.
So continue.
Really funny story before I think we're ready to move on is Brandon Allen, I think, had a practice where he went 6 of 6, maybe throwing checkdowns or just sort of easy completions. Like I think he was 100% completion percentage. And so Greg Papa was doing an interview for the 49ers, and he was talking about, the Niners might trade Trey Lance because Brandon Allen is just so good, right? And Brandon Allen might take Trey Lance's spot on this roster. And then literally the next day, or it might have been that same day, Brandon Allen went like 1 of 8 at practice. And then the next day, Greg Pop was like, well, I guess I didn't know what I was talking about. Or you can forget what I said about Brandon Allen. But I just think it's ridiculous how quickly. I mean, Greg Papa's hired by the 49ers, and how quickly they will write off Trey Lance.
Yeah.
For a guy who's probably just going to be on the practice squad. So
yeah, I think that's a good segue into our first ever guest on the show. Let's welcome Brandon Allen.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, let's welcome Greg Papa.
Oh man.
I think we're ready to. I think we're ready to move on to the running backs. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah.
Okay. So at fullback, we know that Kyle Shanahan's going to use Trey Lance. No, I'm just playing. All right, running backs. Obviously, we've got Christian McCaffrey as running back 1. I don't think that's any surprise. They're going to use the hell out of him, and I get worried that McCaffrey's had his injury history so far in the NFL, and the Niners have had injury plagued running back seasons almost every year. I think every year they've had a new leading rusher.
Yeah.
Except maybe 2021. No, yeah. I think they've had a brand new leading rusher every single season. And unless Elijah Mitchell repeated this year, because maybe the McCaffrey trade was too late, but I think McCaffrey probably ended up with more rushing yards, and Mitchell was probably injured for a lot of the season. But we've got McCaffrey at number 1. He's going to be, getting most of the touches, I would say, on offense, probably, period. Then we've got Elijah Mitchell at number 2, and we got Jordan Mason at number 3. And then we've got 2 rookies that honestly I've never heard of, but I'm seeing right here on the depth chart. We've got Kalen Laborn, and then Ronald Awat.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just laughing because I'm like reading this depth chart right here, and it's like, what if somebody was an asshole and like changed the name that it's sounded kind of suspect.
Yeah.
But when talking about the first 3 running back, I hella forgot Ty Davis Price is running back 4.
Oh yeah.
Ty Davis
His
Price.
former 3rd round pick.
Yes, he was the 3rd round pick last year.
Yeah.
Honestly, I know Mitchell was a late draft pick in 2021, and he quickly rose ahead of Trey Sermon. And the thing is, Elijah Mitchell has struggled to stay healthy. And I hear that Jordan Mason looks a lot better this season, and he already looked good last season. So I wonder if Jordan Mason kind of taps into the Elijah Mitchell workload a little bit. And as for Ty Davis Price, if either of the 3 ahead of him, kind of go down, we could probably see him worked in a little bit more. But as for the other running backs that I mentioned, Laborn and Awat, I don't envision them making the roster, but I mean they
Maybe
can
some.
probably make the practice squad because they're both rookies,
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
and you never know when guys go down. Yeah, I think in 2021 the Niners didn't have a running back for week 3, and Kyle Juszczyk, the fullback that I was gonna mention on the depth chart right here, Kyle Juszczyk had to start at running back, had to start at running back against the Packers, and I was there, and it was a great game. We didn't win, but it was a great time.
Yeah, I don't think you can have too many running backs on a practice squad because at any given moment, that's again, that's a position that you can quickly find yourself getting many injuries, along the
Yeah,
depth chart.
it's a high risk, high contact, position. So, and especially on a run first team like the 49ers, I don't think that you can keep too many running backs.
Yeah.
And then, like I said earlier, the offensive line really, I think, makes the biggest difference.
Yeah.
Except like if you have like a top tier person like Christian McCaffrey, then McCaffrey's going to just make, he's going to be an X factor. But aside from that, like I think you can get by with players like Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason, Ty Davis Price. Like if you use a running back by committee, unless they're just stupid and don't know how to read blocks, or don't know which hole they're supposed to hit, or don't memorize the plays, or maybe don't even protect the quarterback, which I think is pretty important for this team going forward. Next, we're going to talk about the wide receivers. It is Brandon Ayuk as the X receiver. We got Deebo Samuel as the Z receiver, and Juwan Jennings right now as the slot receiver. And then next in line, not in any particular order in the depth chart, we got Ronnie Bell, Danny Gray, and Ray McLeod. And I would say the players that are on the outside looking in are Tay Martin, Chris Conley, Willie Snead, Isaiah Winstead, and Daz Newsome. So I mentioned Isaiah Winstead in the show previously because he was an undrafted rookie, and I thought that I think it was like some practice highlights that I saw that I thought looked pretty good. I think he's a pretty tall receiver. I don't envision he'll make the team, but I don't even envision that he's next in line to make the team. But he was just a player that I was interested in. I think the first 6 that I named are probably going to be the ones that make the team. And really for the 49ers, you don't really need that many receivers because this team is just going to run the ball. Unless the plan has changed and they're implementing sort of the offense that they were going towards at the end of the year, where it was a lot of checkdowns to McCaffrey and really like more of a West Coast, kind of offense. But really, I see the run game being a big part.
Definitely.
Anything you want to say about the receivers, or can we just kind of move
on?
We
can keep going.
Yeah.
I guess I'm curious how they're going to use Deebo this year because they kind of seem to move away from the run game for him last year, whereas 2021 he just had an insane.
Dude, he was incredible in 2021.
He was he was one of the best players in the NFL that year. Period.
He was super Deebo.
Yeah.
No,
that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the way that I see Deebo being used is probably less as a running back because you have McCaffrey, and I would love to see more screens come back for Deebo and more jet sweeps. I think we have to see more of those. Just kind of keep the defenses on their toes, not knowing what they're going to get. So
definitely having Deebo and McCaffrey on the same field is just, it feels like a cheat code.
And then honestly, I don't think Brandon Ayuk gets enough credit. I think he's a terrific route runner, and if he was on a pass first offense, I think he would really blow up.
Yeah, I think he's continuously, gradually escalated as far as his production and his output. He's
I mean,
gotten better and better.
He's been pretty consistent, I would say, over what? Has it been 3 years with the Niners now? Yeah, 2020, 21, 22.
But that's what I mean is he's been consistently, seems like he's going upwards. Like, it's not like he's like plateauing and becoming worse or something,
Yeah, no. He's more, I would say, a traditional receiver than Debo. Yeah, I really like Ayuk, and I kind of feel bad for him because, like I said, on another team, he might be like a star.
Yeah.
I could see him being... he's like a low-key star on the 49ers, but he's got George Kittle getting a lot of touches. He's got Deebo Samuel getting a lot of touches. Now Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
So,
like, imagine Ayuk on the Chiefs right now. He'd be their number one, and he would be a 1,200-yard, 10 touchdown at least guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think I don't want to see that because I want to see Ayuk continue to be on the Niners. But hey, if Patrick Mahomes wants to somehow make his way over to the Niners, I won't complain.
I'll take him. Get him out of Kansas City, please. Somebody. But that's never going to happen. He's like Curry on the Warriors. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah. All right. Tight ends. We got George Kittle, and right now on this depth chart, it's got Charlie Warner as the tight end 2. And I think Braden Willis and Cam Latu actually have I think they have a green light to surpass Charlie Warner in the depth chart. Warner is normally known for his blocking, and I think that if Cam Latu or Braden Willis just sort of have a great camp, I don't know why the 49ers would stay loyal to Charlie Warner over one of those two or both of those rookies. But, I guess we'll just kind of see how it plays out. But we also have Ross Dwelley and Troy Fumagalli also as tight ends in the tight end room. But I personally prefer Ross Dwelley over Charlie Warner, but the 49ers just don't use Ross Dwelley, and I think he's underrated. But I wouldn't say he's like a world-class tight end either.
Right.
But I do know that Cam Latu was the Niners' 3rd-round pick.
This year?
Yeah. Was he a 3rd or was he... Yeah, I think he was the 3rd. So some investment there. I think he'll make the team.
Yeah, if he's a 3rd, 4th-round tight end, that's definitely investment for that position.
Mm-hmm.
And then George Kittle was a 5th-rounder.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Not to say that he should be better than George Kittle at some point. Just that's good investment.
Yeah, crazier things have happened. Yeah. All right. Offensive line, starting with the left tackle position, we got Trent Williams and Matt Pryor. Matt Pryor, I think, has a great chance to beat out Trent Williams in camp. You're not paying attention.
No, I was making a sarcastic nod right there, like totally. Yeah.
No, and then they got Jalen Moore also in the left tackle room. It's pretty self-explanatory. That's Trent Williams' spot. And Matt Pryor and Jalen Moore are probably going to have to duke it out. Although I think the Niners kind of prefer for their backup tackles, or backup offensive linemen, I think they prefer a guy who can fit into, I guess, different positions, like a versatile guy. And I think Colton McKivitz was kind of that guy before, because I want to say Colton McKivitz was drafted as a guard, and then right now he's the starting right tackle. So in terms of other tackles, we have Leroy Watson, who, I mean, no disrespect to Leroy Watson, I don't know who you are. And Alfredo Gutierrez, I know who he is, but is this going to be the year the Niners give him a chance? I don't think so. I think that part of me thinks that they kind of keep him as like a marketing, like trying to get like the Mexico market. And it's cool that they're giving him like an opportunity, but I don't think they're. I mean, if he's a project, they're going really slow with him. But offensive lineman like Jake Brendel, he was a project, and he was a Pro Bowler last year. So I don't know. I mean, we'll kind of see how it goes with Gutierrez, but I'm not necessarily expecting him to make the team, but I expect him to be with the team because I think since he's an international player, he doesn't take a roster spot.
Oh, I didn't know that.
At
least is that in the preseason?
I think he doesn't take a roster. He would on the 53-man roster if he made it, I think. But yeah. He doesn't take a roster spot if they like keep him on the practice squad or like, I don't think that there's like any penalty to doing that. So that's sense. Probably why they haven't like let him go. And like I said, it's more of a like marketing thing. Like I think when they played in Mexico City last season, they had Gutierrez like kind of at the forefront of the marketing for that game, but he wasn't even going to play.
Yeah.
Or suit up. So, then at the guard positions, we got Aaron Banks and we got Jason Poe. I think Jason Poe I want to say he was a center. So maybe Jason Poe might be a guy. I heard he did great in camp last year. He is a little undersized, but if he can be that versatile player, I could see him, jumping around from positions, probably not to tackle, but in the interior offensive line, I mean, if you're good, you're good. But I know firsthand that if you're undersized as a lineman, it's really hard to overcome that. Although lowest man wins. So there's also that. But in the NFL, I'm sure it's maybe a little bit different, because Trent Williams is just huge and he dominates people. And I think in the NFL, I like to have bullies, Yeah. I like to have bully offensive linemen.
I would like to see that from the Raiders.
Yeah. So at center, I didn't even talk about right guard yet. We got Spencer Burford, Nick Zakelj, Joey Fisher, and Ilm Manning. Probably not related to Peyton. But yeah, I think it's going to be Burford and Zakelj. They're the players that I hear the most about. And I've also heard Joey Fisher's name kind of mentioned a couple times. I don't necessarily know why, but he has to be an undrafted rookie because it says right here he's a rookie. And I don't remember the Niners drafting a lineman. So, hopefully they got good value there.
Yeah.
At center, I think it's probably going to be Jake Brendel's job. I don't think John Feliciano is going to take over there. Feliciano might have a better chance at taking a tackle spot. Same thing with Matt Pryor. They would probably be best battling it out for the right tackle position, but we'll kind of see how it plays out. Maybe they'll also be battling for the right guard position.
What is Feliciano listed as? It probably doesn't matter right now, but
he's listed right now on this depth chart. This is David Lombardi's spreadsheet.
Okay.
He's listed as the backup center.
Yeah, I think he was the starting center for the Bills for a while. He might have been with I don't know what team he was with last year, but former Raider. And when he was with the Raiders, I really liked him. And then when he was, I think it was when he was already like a year gone, he started talking shit on Twitter and stuff, and it was kind of annoying, but he was a good Raider, so whatever.
Yeah. The other two names on players that maybe I don't really know what to expect, so I don't necessarily have high expectations for these guys. Keith Ismail and then Corey Luciano. Luciano being a rookie. so probably undrafted as well.
Mm.
But other than that, I think we're going to see a similar starting O-line to the one that we had last year. But I don't think I don't think Daniel Brunskill is back, so he won't be splitting time with Burford. So we'll see if Zakelj can, make it harder for Burford and, maybe have iron sharpen iron. So really, McKivitz's spot, I really hope that he can hold it down, but I'd like to see, whoever it is there. You need stability for whoever's going to play quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I really have to say about the position breakdowns for the Niners. Let's get into the dark side. How about the Raiders?
The Raiders.
Yeah, Raiders.
Yeah, so let's get into them. Yeah, so to start the breakdown for the Raiders, obviously we'll start with the quarterbacks. It's a pretty obvious group. You have Jimmy Garoppolo at the top, although we are still kind of in limbo, right? We're in limbo right now, waiting for him to get healthy and pass a physical. If he doesn't, and he ends up not starting, then we can just stop the breakdowns right now. Like, it doesn't matter, And we were earlier in this episode, you were talking about how coming out of last offseason, he was coming in injured. This is the second year in a row that he couldn't even pass a physical coming out of an offseason. It's like, this can't be a long-term solution. They have to get
all the luck.
He was born with glass bones and paper skin.
My God, that's kind of fucked up. But Jimmy, I hope that you heal well. I hope that you're able to pass the physical, because I'm honestly looking forward to Jimmy Garoppolo playing this season. I want to see what he looks like without Kyle Shanahan's offense. And yeah, he'll be returning to the Josh McDaniels offense that he had in New England. Probably slightly different, because I don't think he would run the exact same thing, that he ran on the Patriots, because you got different personnel and you kind of have to cater your offense to what you got. But yeah, I think it's Jimmy's spot, or Aiden O'Connell. You're being thrown into the fucking fire.
Yeah. It really just, I think the season hinges on Garoppolo. I'll get back to the breakdown. It's just, if he comes back, he plays, and he clearly remembers the offense, and he is, exceeds expectations. He is efficient. Okay, we might do some things. We have these playmakers on offense that can help him succeed. We'll get into the defense another day, and I'm not too sure about how they're going to play, but I have some hope that they can be better than last season. I just don't know how much better. But to continue on quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo won. Right now, I'd say Brian Hoyer is the second string quarterback. He's probably leading, these camps, the mini camp, and going into training camp, he'll probably be the leading quarterback. But when it comes time to play real football in week 1 of the regular season, I don't see him being the top backup for this team. I see that being the current third quarterback, at least to me, Aiden O'Connell, the 4th round pick. I might be wrong, but in this year's draft.
Let me look up when O'Connell was drafted.
Cool. And then the final quarterback on the roster right now is Chase Garbers, who was an undrafted free agent last year and stuck around. I think he kind of switched between practice squad and actually being on the roster here and there last season.
O'Connell was a 4th round pick.
Okay, cool. And yeah. Aiden O'Connell is probably the most interesting guy other than Garoppolo. I've heard great things about Hoyer as far as helping the team, in like prepping and game planning and such. But if he has to hit the field, um, I might have to hit my pillow. I because that's not going to be it's not going to be good. So
Are
we'll
you
see.
sure?
I'm
It
pretty
might be
sure.
good. No, just playing. No, it's not going to be good at all if Brian Hoyer has to play any downs of football for the Raiders this year, any
Yeah,
meaningful downs.
no.
Um, and I mean, did you want to move on?
Yeah, we can move on to running backs.
Yeah. All right.
So at the top you have Josh Jacobs, and we talked about him earlier. He hasn't signed his franchise tag. Probably going through contract negotiations right now, and we'll see. I expect him on the team this season. You don't just let well, they can't let him walk, so you would have to trade him. You don't trade the league leading rusher, in my opinion, unless you can get a haul like the was it the Cowboys got from the Vikings for, I forget the guy's name, but there was a big running back trade back in.
Herschel Walker.
Yeah, yeah. If you could do something like that, cool. But in today's NFL, that's not happening. So I would just bring him back. Behind Josh Jacobs, you have Zamir White, the second-year running back, who didn't get as much playing time as I expected last season. But when he did, I I liked what I saw. I like him as the main backup to Jacobs. Um, I'd like to see him progress and get more touches this season. Um, Next, you have Amir Abdullah, who's more of a pass catching running back. Um, and then you have Brandon Bolden, who's a longtime mainstay in Josh McDaniel's system.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Britton Brown. I think he was a former seventh round pick, maybe 2 years ago, but it might have been last season. I think it was last year. Yeah. So drafted by McDaniels, but ended up being a practice squad guy. Then you have Austin Walter, who played a lot in the preseason last year, and Sincere McCormick, who was an undrafted free agent. I'm pretty sure he's a pretty speedy guy, but he was immediately injured last offseason in camp. So I think this is probably his make or break offseason.
Mm-hmm.
And then at fullback, all I see is Jacob Johnson, um, second year fullback with us. I can't tell you how long he's been in the league, but he was with the Patriots before, so he's another Josh McDaniels guy. And I liked him last year from what I saw.
Yeah. As a person who, doesn't I guess see a lot of these other running backs, it may not mean a bunch to me. All I know is that if Josh Jacobs isn't ready to go, because for contract negotiations or anything, Zamir White better be ready because he is going to be used a lot. Whoever the
Yeah.
running back is, I think is going to be probably the workhorse.
Yeah, I think some people might take this the wrong way or find this to be like counterintuitive, but I think if the Raiders, and I really do hope that they do, if the Raiders sign Josh Jacobs to hopefully a good and fair deal on both ends, but if it's a long-term deal, I hope that Zamir White gets more work because it would be the worst. It'd be reminiscent of Derek Carr going down in 2016 if Josh Jacobs went down in the first year of his, knock on wood, in the first year of his new contract. That would
Mm-hmm.
be catastrophic for this team. Signing a running back to probably a highly guaranteed deal, and then he goes down, like, that's not a good feeling. So I'd
Well,
like
let
to
me
see
tell you,
more
that's one
of
of the
him.
main reasons why you don't pay running backs because they
Yeah.
are high. It's a high risk position, and you're going to be eating away draft capital. Honestly, if there was no such thing as a salary cap, by all means, pay them whatever the hell they want or whatever they're going to need in order to fulfill their obligations and be with the team. And if you want to make them a made man, make them a made man. We don't live in that world. There's just some people that as soon as they get their deal, they're not hungry anymore. I think in Rocky 3, Mickey was told Rocky that he became civilized, and he said the worst thing for a fighter is them becoming civilized. And I think that kind of holds true in the NFL too, because there's a whole bunch of players. As soon as they get paid, they are not who they were before they got paid.
Yeah.
Because you just got the bag. It just feels good to like go out, spend money, and
also once you get that bag and like if I get injured, this gets tarnished. Not tarnished, but like the things that aren't guaranteed, I will not get most likely. So I think once you get that bag and it's secured, it's like I'm not going to go as hard. Like Jacobs last year, like if we're being honest, Jacobs last season, he gets his 5th-year option declined. And then what does he do? He goes out and has his best
fucking
career
went
year.
hard.
He was the leading rusher in the NFL. And I think those two things probably coincide. Do I think Josh Jacobs can't do it again? No, I think he can. But if he gets a big contract, do I think he will? I don't know.
Yeah. I think Jacobs, since he has the background of coming from nothing, I think it would still probably mean a lot to him.
Yeah.
But you never know if he might be like, well, now I can finally, now that I've got my generational wealth, I can finally protect myself. Jacobs doesn't strike me as that kind of player, but you never know with these guys sometimes.
He plays hard, and he seems like the type of guy who really does lead by example, like on the field, So, and I think he's prideful, like as far as his craft, So I'm not trying to say I think he's that type of guy. It's just you also have to protect yourself,
Yeah, because you're working so hard when you're not when you don't have that guaranteed big super big contract in the NFL. You're working so hard so that way you can get it. You're looking to make that money because the average NFL career I think lasts 3 years. Most people don't even get that second contract. So if you can bust your ass so that way you can get that contract, then afterwards, I can totally see why you're like, you know what? I got paid. What more is there left? I have to protect myself for the future because, unless you've been sleeping under a rock this whole time, football is a very physical sport. It's terrible for your body. If you look at what's going on with Deion Sanders, he might lose a foot. And I think that might have to do with him playing on injuries while he was a player, or I don't know if it has anything to do with that. I just heard that it has to do with the fact that he pushed himself throughout his career.
Well, I didn't really I didn't have the chance to look into that or anything, so I wouldn't know. But yeah, I did hear that, and that's a horrible predicament, And it kind of what you just said reminds me of this guy played in a very different time, I think, even than Deion Sanders. But in today's NFL, I think they have a lot more rules and regulations against players playing injured and such. But you never. I've also heard the stories of players just getting, hey, shoot me up, inject me with something, some sort of painkiller, and I'll be right back out there. You've heard of Ronnie Lott cutting off his finger. The player I think of is Jim Otto, legendary center for the Raiders. He has at least one of his lower legs
amputated.
Yeah.
Damn, I didn't know that.
I should probably look it up before I go saying any more, but
yeah. If not, it'll make a really funny. It'll make a really funny thumbnail if he doesn't. Let's just say he doesn't have an amputation. It's like, it's not that funny now that I think about it. But um,
Moving on.
what yeah, moving on.
For reference, I searched it up. On August 1st, 2007, ESPN has an article that says Raiders legend Otto undergoes right leg amputation. So I don't know if it's both legs, but for sure the right leg. So I mean, he was a center every play. I mean, all offensive linemen kind of have like that 3-point stance or whatnot, So
yeah,
but I mean, he played
that.
hard. So
I mean, that's sad. Like if you asked me, like, I mean, don't ask me because I've never been in that situation. But I think it would be an interesting question to ask Jim Otto. Like, if he could do it again, would he push himself as hard, or try to do something to prevent that leg amputation, even if it meant sacrificing some of his earnings in his career, which was nothing compared to what it is now. But
yeah,
I'm wondering if he would make that trade, because like for me personally, I would rather still be walking. I don't think I can put a price on any of my limbs.
yeah. I think I can't imagine like losing my sight or hearing, and walking is another one of those sorts of things that we just take for granted, and then once it's gone, it's like it's life changing. So
yeah. So for those of you at home, appreciate what you have, because it could be gone.
Yeah. So next up, do we have the tight ends or wide receivers?
We have the wide receivers.
All right. So at the top, we have Philip Dorsett.
Are you no?
We have Devontae Adams.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Oh, I think I got you that time.
Yeah, no, I was like Philip Dorsett, and then I was like, it kicked in. I'm like, man, you guys wide receivers suck. Like, no disrespect to Philip Dorsett, but it's like,
if that's your best receiver, that's not good. Yeah. Actually, to me, this is probably the deepest position on the Raiders. I find the wide receiver position to be, I wouldn't say stacked, but like very good. It's not like so, well, it is top heavy, but it's not like, say, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Like the number 2 isn't like a T. Higgins, but Devontae Adams at the top. That's all I need to say. I'd still argue he is the best receiver in football right now. You can argue about Justin Jefferson, or you might say Cooper Kupp, but I think from what I saw last season from Devontae, I can't say anybody else is better than him.
I can't.
Number 2.
Who? I say Justin Jefferson is better.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's probably valid. I got to see more of Devontae, and it's like he made catches and he runs routes that I've never seen before. I mean, the no look one-handed catch in front of Jalen Ramsey was just hilariously good. There was a sideline end zone touchdown grab against the Niners that was just disgusting. But yeah, I mean,
I'm not saying Devontae is not good. He's an excellent football player. Yeah, I just don't think that currently, right now, he's the best wide receiver in the NFL. That's all I'm saying.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say, like,
he's up there.
Justin Jefferson also, like, the stuff he does is insane. That catch against the Bills is like, just put a picture of that and put it in the Hall of Fame. Like, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, it's a good debate, but I can say Devontae Adams at the very least deserves to be in that conversation for being the top receiver in football still.
Mm-hmm.
Your number 2 receiver, I'll just kind of call him the number 2 receiver, Jacoby Myers. I guess some kind of a recurring theme with the Raiders with Josh McDaniels, and maybe this is also a Dave Ziegler thing, is you kind of mentioned it for the Niners and their offensive line. This regime for the Raiders really likes I just
bullies.
Lost the word. I like bullies, yeah, in football, but flexibility.
Yeah.
Being able to play
Um,
multiple positions.
God damn it! You
I know.
forgetting the word made me forget the word. The word is
Fuck.
just keep talking, keep saying
Okay.
your point, and
Thank
then
you.
I'll remember the word.
Yeah. But basically, you have Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, Hunter Renfro. Hunter Renfro is pretty much an exclusive slot receiver, but Jacoby Myers can play outside and inside. Same goes for Devontae.
Versatile.
Thank you. Yes. Versatility. That's what the Raiders are looking for because, not many of their positions, some of them, but not many of them are top heavy. So if you can have versatile players that can take up multiple positions, and that helps, and that also helps in maybe having less players at a certain position when it comes to the 53-man roster because you have one guy that can play all the positions, like a Feliciano on the Niners. So Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers, I could see them kind of switching around here and there. And then there's Hunter Renfro in the slot. Next, you have DeAndre Carter, free agent from the Chargers. I think he was also a guy that played a lot in the slot for them, but it makes sense because they have Keenan Allen and Mike Williams on the outside. So, and then Philip Dorsett, as I joked. Keelan Cole, excuse me. Next,
Was he
and
on the team last year?
He was on the team last year. He was mostly on the practice squad, but he did play on the regular season a few times. He had the big touchdown catch against the Patriots that some people didn't think was a touchdown catch. Many people.
I think I remember something about that.
Yeah.
It definitely rings a bell.
Yeah. And then and Philip Dorsett, by the way, was a free agent signing this year. Deep, fast running, deep threat receiver. Yeah. Cam Sims is the next receiver. I had never heard of him. We signed him in free agency, and I went on Twitter and I was just like, I just want to know who this guy is. And the insiders that tweeted it, I looked at the comments and the quote tweets, and it was all these Washington football team fans going, "No," because they just lost one of their favorite receivers from their team. So I'm very intrigued to see what he does in the preseason.
Who was it again?
Camp. Cam Sims. I believe he's going to be number 81, but I could be wrong there. Actually, yeah, it says right here he's number 81. And he's kind of a taller receiver. He seems like a deep threat, but also he might be a good end zone target.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I could see him being a backup outside receiver. Next comes DJ Turner, former undrafted free agent from I think 2 or 3 years ago, who has stuck around. He was our punt returner for a while. He's been on the 53-man roster a few times. And I like him, but there's probably going to come a time where somebody else beats him out, and that's a guy that's coming up in a few names from now. Next is Chris Lacey. I couldn't tell you a thing about him. Sorry. And then Trey Tucker. This would be the guy, 3rd round pick, I think 100th overall this year. I didn't really care for the pick because I felt like we should have gone with a defender, but he is a speedy, shifty receiver. And he was part of the reason why I kind of theorized about Hunter Renfro potentially being traded, because he's another slot receiver. He's not going to be playing on the outside. He's like 5'8" and 190 pounds. Like, he's not a big receiver at all,
Is Mac Hollins still on the team? Did you?
No, he left in free agency. He went to the Falcons. Yeah. And then the last receiver is Christian Wilkerson, which I recognize that name, but I couldn't tell you where it's from. I want to say he was with the Patriots, which would make sense, but I could be wrong. But Trey Tucker, for sure. Trey Tucker is just, post draft, he's a guy that I'm very intrigued by because if he could become this, explosive play gadget player for us, that sounds cool to me, And if he could be our punt returner, kick returner, a very, again, versatile player. I like the sound of that, and I would expect him to make the roster. But I think there are probably 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5 guys above him that I see making the roster. And when it comes down to it, when I eventually actually look at this roster and say, okay, who do I expect to make the 53? I don't know if I can see 6 receivers making this team on the regular, on the 53-man roster. It's close. It's either 5 or 6.
I think 6 is a good number because of special teams. Yeah, you have to figure that you want a guy probably designated for punt returns and kick returns. Although teams are probably just going to do a bunch of touchbacks anyway this season.
I'm not going to do many projections or anything right now, but if I had to guess, it would be Devontae, Jacoby Myers, Hunter Renfrow, DeAndre Carter, Cam Sims, and Trey Tucker. I think Philip Dorsett and Keelan Cole probably don't make the regular season roster. I could see them being like camp bodies in a way, kind of teaching the younger guy, specifically Trey Tucker, kind of the ins and outs.
All right. Now let's move on to the tight ends for the Raiders.
Yes.
This I'm actually pretty interested in.
Yeah. So no more Darren Waller, no more Foster Moreau. Happy to say that Foster Moreau actually signed with the Saints, after the cancer scare. So
what about
like
Clive Walford? Is he still on the team? No, I'm just playing.
That was 2016. Yeah. So leading off the tight ends, we have Austin Hooper, free agent signing, formerly with the Titans. I want to say the Browns. I'm not sure which other teams. And I really did like the signing at the time. Obviously, this was before the draft, so I felt like he was one of the few starting caliber tight ends out there. Granted, I wouldn't say he's a top end starter, but he's a good, good, solid, respectable starter to have. And then for me, right behind him is Michael Mayer, the second round tight end.
Mm-hmm.
And I expect Michael Mayer to supplant him by the end of the season.
I expect Michael Mayer to probably supplant him early on. I don't know. I just, for whatever it is, I think, you sent me a couple of videos about Michael Mayer, and I think he looked like a great blocker. And if he's going to be able to catch passes from Jimmy Garoppolo, hopefully they're accurate. No, I mean, I say that because I've seen Jimmy throw some like hospital balls.
Dude,
and,
I've
that could make or break somebody's career.
I've been a huge critic of Jimmy on the Niners, so it's kind of a hilarious, I wouldn't say slap in the face, but it's a hilarious
it's your problem now.
Turn of events, that he's now on the Raiders.
Yeah. It feels like just yesterday we were having that debate. And I think we were playing catch in the street in front of my house, and we were debating on whether Jimmy Garoppolo or Derek Carr was better. And I think I was telling you I thought Jimmy was better at the time. I've since changed my stance. But better for the team right now. Right now with no practice in training camp, it's hard to say Jimmy, but I ultimately was thinking that Garoppolo is going to bring a different culture into the locker room, which I think is needed. He's coming at a much better price than Derek Carr is. But yeah, what were you going to say about being a Jimmy critic?
Oh, I mean, that was all I really had to say about being a Jimmy critic, but I do agree that I don't know if this is exactly how you said it, but I do think Jimmy is. I think if he's healthy, he's better for this team right now. I think that. I mean, actually, it's funny. I really don't want to go on a big tangent about Derek Carr and stuff, but he did come out recently and say that he didn't give the Raiders his best last season, and he regrets that. And I thought that was interesting. I'm not going to go into it too deep, but I'm curious what he means by that. You know?
Well, I mean, what's he supposed to say? Well, I mean, I guess he could say nothing, but like, what's
I'm
he gonna
assuming he
say?
was asked. I'm assuming
Like,
he was asked a question by a beat reporter, and I mean, he's on the Saints. He doesn't have to talk about the Raiders. He could just say, I'm going to talk about the Saints today. You know, I'm focused on the Saints. But
yeah,
instead, wherever it was, he said, I really regret not giving the Raiders my best last season, like something along those lines. And it's like interesting, because last year was a colossal failure, and a lot of fans put all of the blame on Josh McDaniels, and I can't blame them. But, I don't think Derek Carr is blameless in that, So if
yeah,
he's admitting that he didn't give his best that he could have, you know,
yeah. So when does he decide that he's going to give his best?
I think it was he kind of made it sound like there might have been things off the field and stuff that he was kind of focusing on, something like that. I don't know. I don't know why he didn't give his best because he always comes off to me like the guy that would, you know. So I
Okay,
just found that interesting that he said that.
I think there's a difference between giving your best and the Raiders getting his best. I would I would like to think that the Raiders just didn't get his best, and that would probably be a better way to word it. Not giving your best seems like it's an effort issue.
Right. That would be unacceptable in a professional level, you know.
Yeah.
Um, Especially at a quarterback. Like
But if
that's
he's
just
got
why.
stuff going on and he gave all that he could, given the circumstances that he's in, I think that's different.
Yeah.
But
I think
one thing
I
I want to say real quick about you and I are hesitant to say that Jimmy's better for this team right now because I think I've definitely said that. I will say Jimmy will bring a different culture, and the Raiders need a different culture.
right. No, I
It could be
agree.
better or it could be worse. We'll find out. But something had to change, and they made a change. So
Yeah. Well, I think the last thing on Derek Carr, I'm so sorry. I kind of thought about it. Like, I remember seeing somebody comment about that, and it was something along the lines of, man, this sure sounds like he was essentially butthurt about how everything happened with John Gruden and then Josh McDaniels coming in as the new coach. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if him saying that he didn't give his best is essentially due to him being upset about everything that happened with Gruden because he was really close to him. And I think he felt really comfortable in his system. And then he just midseason is ousted, granted for proper reasons, but it's another, again, like I said about Darnold compared to Carr, like shitty circumstances for Carr. There comes a point, I mean, he literally cried in a press conference. He was literally crying last season because he was just so upset. It's like every single year, besides 2016, he breaks his fucking leg. Every single year, he had a shitty circumstance. It's like, how many years of that? I don't care how religious you are. How long will that take to break a guy? So maybe he finally just fucking broke, and he was like, it's clear that McDaniels does not believe in him, probably early on, and it was clear in the wording of his contract that he wasn't going to last after last season. So he probably said, what am I doing this for? Right? Maybe.
mm,
Anyways, to carry on with the tight ends, OJ Howard is the third tight end on the roster. He was a free agent signing. I expect him to be a camp body. I don't really, he might make the team, but he didn't do anything for the Texans. He's a former first-round pick, very highly, projected type of guy for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but didn't really amount to much. Got beat out relatively quickly.
Mhm.
Fourth on the roster at tight end is Jesper Horsted. I can't tell you his exact background, but I know he was with the team last year, maybe the past 2 years, and he's a sleeper to make this team and possibly even make a little difference here and there in the regular season. I could see him being the third tight end over OJ Howard. Fifth and sixth, you got Cole Fotheringham and John Samuel Schenker. Fotheringham, I don't know. I can't tell you if he was a undrafted free agent this year or last year. And then John Samuel Schenker was undrafted this year.
Well, it sounds like the previous guy that you mentioned probably comes from a family that's rich in pig farms.
Lots of pig fathers making ham.
Yeah. So for those of you who might be like new to watching this show, I make some pretty bad dad puns sometimes. So just
Well,
either get used to it or get lost. No, I'm just playing.
yeah. So, I mean, that's it for tight end. We can move on to the offensive line and wrap this up.
And then the main event.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So offensive line for the Raiders. I mean, just before I get into it, like, they caught a lot of shit last year, especially at the right tackle position and like right guard. And I really do believe that they picked it up and got better and better as the season went on. I think that this offensive line coach, I believe his name is Carmen Brasillo, but I could be totally off. He's done a good job with this unit, and they're not. It's not a very well-known unit. Besides this first guy I'm going to talk about, Colton Miller at left tackle, former first-round pick for John Gruden, probably the only first-round pick other than Josh Jacobs that has worked out for this team under John Gruden. Next up, I'm kind of throwing the backup left tackles and right tackles maybe a little mixed in, so bear with me. Under Colt Miller, I have Brandon Parker. I can see him being the swing tackle if he's healthy. Last year, he was the projected starting right tackle, but he tore his ACL during training camp. And then below Brandon Parker, I have Justin Herron, and couldn't tell you much about him.
I was just laughing because Matt Parker. I started thinking about
Spider Menace.
Yeah, Spider-Man 2 scene.
Oh shit, dude. Left guard, we have Dylan Parham. Dylan Parham could totally be the starting right guard. I have no clue. I don't think anybody does, other than probably the coaching staff. He came out of college as a right guard, and when they announced his card, they said he was a center. So another versatile player. We'll see where he ends up, but right now I would say he's the starting left guard because that's what he ended up being last year.
Mm-hmm.
Next up is Jordan Meredith, and then below him is, I shouldn't say below him, and then is Vitaly Gurman. I don't have much to say about them, but I can say that of all these backups that I'm going to mention, I hope that somebody in the preseason jumps out, and clearly shows like, oh, that guy needs to be on this roster,
Mm-hmm. All those rookies that you mentioned, they are also undrafted, right?
Which rookies?
Didn't you mention that there were the Raiders didn't sign any undrafted rookies?
Yeah, no, there was a undrafted rookie tight end.
No.
Uh,
I'm talking about for the offensive line because I know they didn't draft any linemen. They
oh, there are. There's just I think when they came out of the draft, they had like only 8 to 12 roster spots open. So they didn't have many undrafted free agents, but they do have some on the offensive line. They're going to be towards the end of this.
I just want to apologize. I keep yawning. For
No,
those of
you're
you
good.
guys who might be watching this video at like a later date, like maybe I splice it up and post it. It is 12:30, so we're bearing in there, but we're getting through just fine.
Yep.
Uh, Mike, any lasting things that you want to say about the offensive line before we move on to our rankings?
Yeah, I do because I didn't even get to center yet.
Yeah, that's
I
the
was
show. That's the
yeah.
show. And go ahead.
I do want to answer your question though about the undrafted free agents. I looked this up. It looks like they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 undrafted free agents, and most of them are on defense. I see one offensive guard, which I'll mention in a sec, and one offensive tackle, one tight end, and that's it on offense. Everything else is a defender.
It's fucking hilarious. Yeah, I did want to say something about the
Yeah.
offensive line.
Mike, you want to wrap this up? Well, I
Yeah.
will once I get past center,
Yeah.
right guard, and right tackle.
Yeah, I will once you let me talk.
Yeah. Fucking Niner fan. No,
Yeah,
but
we just don't get it, dude.
at center we have Andre James returning for I think his third season, maybe fourth with the Raiders. He got to get a second contract with the Raiders when he was, I think, under John Gruden, and he's stuck around with Josh McDaniels. So good for him. And he played really well last year. There was a lot of speculation that Dylan Parham was kind of going to eventually replace him, specifically this season, but that's not happening this year. And then Hronis Grasu. His name starts with the H. Hronis Grasu. Can't tell you much there. But backup center. Right guard. Right guard, we just actually the most recent free agent signing for the Raiders is Greg Van Roten. That's what I'm going to say his last name because there's no way it's Rotten. It's spelled Roten. Greg Van Roten. I think he was with the Bills last year. I don't expect him to be like a very great starter, but if he ends up being the starter right guard, he'll be serviceable at best, I think. That's what the vibe I got from what I had heard. Below him, Alex Bars returning for I think his second season with the Raiders. He was signed late in the offseason last year and just stuck around on the 53-man roster for the Raiders last year. Started a few games, so it's another name in the possibility to be a starter at right guard.
Mm-hmm.
And then after him is Natani Muti, which is a very interesting name. He went to Fresno State, I'm pretty sure. And he was an undrafted free agent with the Broncos. And I think he was playing there for a few years, mostly practice squad guy. And then last year we took him off of the Broncos practice squad. We nabbed him, and
you claimed him.
Yeah, that's the more official word. And they kept.
I like nabbed.
Yeah. But I think the rule with taking a player off of another team's practice squad is they have to stay on the 53-man roster for at least 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like week 14, so they just kept him on the 53 for the rest of the season. And then in the offseason, they had to re-sign him. They did to a 1-year deal, as I think it's a 1-year deal. So I think they like him. They like what they saw. And a lot of Raider fans think he's very much in the running to be the starting right tackle. I don't know. I haven't seen anything. Never seen him play. So we'll see. I'd love for this guy to come out and be this, like you say, bully. I'd love for him to be a bully and just
How big is
prove to
he?
be a guy. Pretty sure he's a big guy. I don't know his exact size. I could look it up if you want, but and then the last guy I'll talk about is McClendon Curtis. He's an undrafted free agent. He might be from Chattanooga, but I could be wrong. Let me search him up. McClendon Curtis. Yep, he played college football at UT Chattanooga. I think he was a guy in the 7th round that people expected to be drafted, and he went undrafted, and the Raiders picked him up. And he's another guy that a lot of people think has a good shot at starting a right guard because our right guard position is that bad. But at the same time, I named 4 names that can all start. Like, you can look at it in a bad way of like, well, they're all not that proven to be good. Or you can say, well, one of them can rise up and prove to be worth starting. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously somebody's going to win the position, but I mean, hopefully the Raiders have somebody who can be a suitable right guard, because the Raiders play in a division with Chris Jones. Is Frank Clark still on the Chiefs?
No, I think he's a free agent right now.
Oh, I mean, Chris Jones is a pretty good D tackle, and you guys play him twice a year. You have to. I mean, Joey Bosa doesn't necessarily go against any guards, but I mean, all it takes is one bad offensive lineman to really bring back an O line, because I mean, it just throws off the timing of everything. And you're as good as your weakest link, and I think that really holds true with offensive line. So if I mean, especially with Garoppolo potentially being the quarterback, you got to get him some protection, and not for the porn stars. Well, for those two, but
Netani Muti is 6'3", 315. So he's a big boy.
Yeah.
Not overly tall.
Like, when I think of bullies, I think of like huge. You know what I mean? Like
Trent Brown.
Like Trent Brown.
Yeah.
Trent Brown, Trent Williams. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll finish it
off with right tackle. Right tackle. But I agree. I'm definitely trying to get out of here. Out of this segment. Yeah. Right tackle, just really quickly, Jermaine Eluemunor. I did it again, dude. I did it again. Fuck. Somebody called me out in the comments, and I was laughing my ass off, and I just fucking did it without even thinking. Jermaine Eluemunor. That is how you pronounce his name. Eluemunor. It's spelled Eluemunor.
I should just title this part
Manure.
Mike struggles to pronounce Eluemunor. No,
because last time I said Jermaine Eluemunor.
Like, no, you said Eluemunor.
Dude, I'm losing it.
And
correct.
Then you said Eluemunor. I thought the guy in the comments, I thought he was talking about me saying, like, I never heard Eluemunor, pronounced that way. I thought he was talking about me, like, Eluemunor.
Yeah, right.
You think he was talking about you?
100%. It had to be. Because I
think he timestamped it, and it was like right as you were about to pronounce it.
Yeah, exactly. And it was funny because you said it the first time and I didn't understand you, the opening one. And I was like, yeah.
Is that how you pronounce it?
I said, like, however you pronounce it. And, like, you did no. Open the door. Yeah, I was like, oh my God. So, yeah, sometimes pronunciations are hard. I was laughing at you earlier when you were trying to pronounce, like, a backup receiver. Pronunciations. See? Exactly. It's like you just said, it's 12:30. Uh,
It's almost 12:40.
yeah. So you have Jermaine Illuminor, and then you have Thayer Munthard, who was a 7th-round pick last year, who was the guy that was alternating with Illuminor in the first 4 weeks of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Just the two of them switching off, starting in the middle of games, and then finally Illuminor earned the right to start for the rest of the season, and I think he succeeded. And he's back on a new deal, so I'm good with it. It's really, to me, I don't know what to think about these backups, but if they can figure out the right guard position, I think there's potential here. I think Jimmy Garoppolo's a quick passer. If they can get the offense down to a lot of quick routes,
Like
quick,
dink and dunk.
yeah, first read West Coast offense sort of thing. This can be a very efficient offense, and if they can have that happen, then it's going to be dependent on the defense. Sorry, two more names: Justin Murray, Dalton Wagner. Dalton Wagner, undrafted free agent this year. He was the highest paid undrafted free agent in all of the NFL. I'm fairly positive. So for some reason, they really wanted him. In fact, the last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to search up his height and weight because I'm pretty sure he
Is a bully.
Yeah. So Dalton Wagner. There we go. 6'8", 320. So same weight, but 5 more inches. He's a tall offensive lineman at the tackle position.
It's pretty good. I don't know. I think, oh man, if I was a quarterback, and I've never played quarterback, so I really couldn't tell you, I would probably want shorter offensive linemen so I can see. It would probably be easier to see over them. Like, I can't imagine Kyler Murray trying to peek over a 6'8", tackle.
I think that's why the guards and
Bryce
centers
Young.
tend. Yeah, I think that's why the guards and centers tend to be the smaller linemen than the tackles, because the tackles are off to your side, either protecting your blind side or right in front of you, whereas the guards and center are in your field of view. So I think that's why.
Yeah.
So, but that's it for me on the position breakdowns.
Mike, we still doing this ranking right now?
Yeah.
I'm hella down.
All right, let's do
Fucking do it. All right.
It shouldn't take long.
So we're going to start off with 49er players.
Okay.
We are going to be ranking our top 5 favorite current 49er players. And then we will be ranking our top 5 favorite current Raider players. I'm going to go first, but I'm going to say no.
Should I? I think I should go first.
Yeah.
Because I think your opinion probably matters more for the Niners. Mine, I guess, matters more for the Raiders.
Well, it's not that it matters more. I mean,
you know what I mean.
To each their own opinion, but it's more of like it's more special to me because it's the team that I root for.
Yeah.
But you say your 5th, then I'll say my 5th. You say your 4th, I'll say my 4th, and then we'll give our reasoning for what we pick.
Do you have? Okay, yeah, I'll for sure go ahead. I was just gonna ask, do you have any honorable mentions? Anybody that just didn't make the cut that you're like, oh man, wish I could talk about him.
I'll say after.
Okay, I'll save mine for after too then.
Yeah, because if you give honorable mentions right now, it's gonna spoil who's probably in your.
Good point. So number 5 for me is Brock Purdy. And I think it's partially because I was at the Miami Dolphins game that Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt at.
Mm-hmm.
And, this Brock Purdy guy comes in, and I'm sitting there thinking, dude, this is kind of sad, kind of hilarious, because I felt the entire crowd's expectations just plummet in the moment that
Yeah.
Garoppolo got hurt. That you
Well, there
guys went
goes
from
the
like,
season.
we have the best defense in football, and our offense is clicking. To, what number is this guy? Brock Purdy. I've never heard of him, you know. And then he goes out there and he fucking slings it, and you guys
He
beat the
tore it up.
Dolphins.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, who the fuck is this dude? And then I go to the game the next week. I'm pretty sure it was the next week. His first ever start against the Buccaneers. I wanted to go to the Buccaneers game because it was I expected it to be Tom Brady's last game in the Bay Area. So,
Mm-hmm.
And he tore it up even more.
Yeah.
Fucking dismantles the Buccaneers defense just a year or two off of dismantling the Chiefs offense in the Super Bowl. It's
Mhm.
like, again, who the fuck is this dude? And he does it all season. He's got balls of steel. And I'm rooting for him,
Mm-hmm. Real quick, I just want to say when you were talking about the Miami Dolphins game, so you got the perspective of the fans in the stadium, like, oh, who the fuck is this kid? I got the perspective, obviously I was watching at home. I got the 49er Twitter perspective, and it was fucking nuts, dude. Like, I was watching the game, and then, like, obviously I didn't have high expectations for Brock Purdy. Yeah, dude. It was hella funny because like everybody was kind of like, well, let's see how this goes. And then it's like, you know, kind of like everybody's kind of joking, like, oh, he's the franchise quarterback. And then it was like, dude.
He's pretty
And
fucking
then it
good.
didn't fucking stop, dude. It didn't
Yeah.
stop there. Like he was just tearing it up, dude. I think
Yeah.
Brock Purdy's a good pick for your number 5.
So who's your number 5?
My number 5. I mean, this was really hard for me. Like, there were players that I could, put on the top 5. There was a person I had to slide out of it. I guess I'll mention it later. My number 5 player is my 5th favorite on this current team is Fred Warner, middle linebacker, BYU. But I mean, I just love that, he's the quarterback of the defense. I love that he hits hard. I mean, he's got a high football IQ. He's just all over the fucking field. He's like awesome to watch. And he's probably one of the more versatile middle linebackers that I've ever seen play the game. Like, and I watched a lot of Patrick Willis, and I watched a lot of Navarro Bowman. And I'm not saying that Warner is better than any of those two players, but like, Warner right now, as compared to the rest of the NFL, I think Warner's probably the best middle linebacker in football. And I think that, I mean, he's just awesome. Like he's just awesome to watch on the field. So that's why I pick him. Like, yeah. He's great.
I wish the Raiders had Fred Warner on their team because he would probably be one of my top 5 favorite Raiders, But as a Niner, I'm not crazy about him. You know why, but I'm not going to go into it at all.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a good pick. He is the best linebacker in football. I can say that. I have my thoughts on him, but he is the best linebacker in football.
Like I'm not picking him like for his personality or anything. Like he's just like really fun to watch, and I mean it's just kind of one of those players where I'm like, well, I'm glad he's on my team.
Yeah, no, that's the thing is like we're gonna have different perspectives on these players because I'm from the outside looking and you're from the inside, kind of looking out, essentially.
Yes,
probably not the best wordology, but wordology is not a word, but I just wanted to say it.
It is now.
Yeah.
All right.
So I'm ready to talk about my number 4 player for the Niners.
Go with your number 4. Let's keep it rolling. High energy. Boom, 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 boom.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
My number 4 player is Mike McGlinchey.
He's
I'm
not
just
on.
kidding. I'm
Oh,
just kidding. It's Deebo Samuel.
it's a pretty
Yeah.
good pick, man.
I think if this were the offseason coming out of 2021, he might be my number 1. But after last season, he didn't play the same. And not that it's like his fault, it's more of like I feel that the game plan changed for him, and probably a similar thing that I was talking about with Jacobs when he gets re-signed is once they get signed and they have that bag secured, it's like, well, I don't want to get hurt. I need to protect myself. And maybe the team says that too, is we need to protect our assets. So we can't have him going out there throwing his body around,
Mm-hmm.
But for the player that I know he is and what he can do, maybe he should be higher on this list. But I feel pretty good about these other 3 guys.
Remind me at the end. I have something that I want to say about what you said.
Mm-hmm. Also, one last thing about Debo. It's fucking hilarious when he comes out of the tunnel with Trent Williams. And it's Debo with the boombox, right?
No,
or is it
no,
Trent Williams?
No, it's one of the it's one of the assistant coaches. I forgot their name.
Still though, it's always Debo in the front, and I just think that shit's cool. So,
I love when Debo and Trent Williams lead the way through the tunnel. I think that's awesome. But yeah, remind me at the end to tell you. I guess I want to talk about what you said. My number 4 is Christian McCaffrey, and there's other players that I could have put, and even right now, I'm like, man, did I am I making a mistake putting these players on my list? It's just my top 5 favorite right now. So, and I want to also say these are just my favorites right now. They're subject to change, So my favorites next year might not be the same as my favorites this year. And like last year, McCaffrey wasn't even on the team. So it might be crazy that he's one of my favorite players now. But, I mean, he's just so fun to watch. He's incredibly gifted. I love that he's not taking training camp or, OTAs off like some players might. So I love that aspect where he's like leading by example. He's a player, if I had to pick a college team that I like, I would probably pick Stanford. Mm-hmm. And so I knew about McCaffrey coming out of Stanford. He was great there, and it transferred to the NFL, and he's like, one of the more dominant running backs. Like, I mean, he's not like a bulldozer or anything, but he's so shifty and so versatile. And so he's new to the team, but I love the impact that he's had. And another thing I really like about him is that he's incredibly professional. Like, if you listen to him speak, he has been, training for this his whole life. He's like, you would think that he has never had the taste of alcohol in his breath or like anything. Like he is, he just seems like super clean. Like, he's just like incredible, the ultimate professional, I would say.
Yeah. I mean,
not that alcohol is bad or anything. It's just like, he just comes off as like, super like innocent.
Yeah. He comes from a family of professionals, so
yeah.
It
his dad, sense. Ed McCaffrey. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a longtime wide receiver in the NFL. So, yeah.
Which would explain his receiving prowess as a running back. McCaffrey.
Yeah. He's awesome to watch, dude. Yeah. I'm glad he's on the Niners. He's a player that I would have wanted back then, but it didn't make sense in terms of roster building. But I think it would have made a lot more sense than having Solomon Thomas. But I digress. I would have much rather had Patrick Mahomes at that time, but
Yeah.
yeah,
So is it time for my number 3?
yeah.
Nick Bosa.
All right.
Yeah. Did you think he wouldn't be on my list?
I'm kind of shocked that he is. But I mean, give me your reasoning.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. It's the fact that I talked about Devontae Adams being, if not the best, definitely in the conversation of being the best wide receiver in football. The same goes for Nick Bosa at defensive end. I think that TJ Watt gets a lot of that talk, and I think that Miles Garrett gets a lot of that.
Mhm.
Um, and I think a guy like Max Crosby deserves some of that, but I think Nick Bosa is a fucking wrecking ball. Just he's unstoppable. I don't think there's an offensive tackle in football. Maybe Trent Williams that can actually stop him one on one. You know,
Mhm.
um,
Well, I know
at
Trent
least not
Williams
consistent.
can.
Yeah, I should say definitely not consistently. Not any
Mhm.
offensive tackle. Um, so watching Nick Bosa, he's one of those players, and to me, my top 3 choices are he's one of those players where you just have to sit back and go, like, that's special, and I can admire that, like
Mhm.
that's just how good he is, and these
Mhm.
players are. Um, I'm not the craziest about like his personality and stuff, but I also do. I was listening to a podcast recently, and I heard that he and his brother just go to like a local park that they live near, and they just
And
train
train.
there every day. Yeah, and I had never heard that before, and I was like, that's hilarious and awesome. Because like,
Mhm.
imagine being a kid living there, and it's like, oh, Teddy's on the swings again. And then you look over, it's like, oh, there's Joey and Nick Bosa again, fucking throwing tires across the field.
So you're
Just
not crazy about his personality. It hurts my feelings, Mike.
it's less that because I think that's kind of hilarious. Because
Yeah.
that's the definition of him being just a complete fucking meathead. But like, even though he's a meathead, he's like so fucking technical and at the same time like built to just dominate
Dude,
people. Like,
he is built.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's just a genuine pleasure to watch him play football because he's that good. And I'd say he should be on a Hall of Fame path.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But nothing like that is a sure thing. He's definitely, as of right now, on that trajectory.
Yeah.
So my number 3 is George Kittle. And I really appreciate what George Kittle has done, since he's been on the 49ers. Like, it was just awesome to watch him like grow into this, from this late round draft pick to he's the celebrity of the team now. And uh, you know, he's got a fun and funny at times personality. Like, he's always goofing around and everything, and his teammates have described him as like wild. And some people don't really care for that. And I understand that. I mean, there's some points where I'm like, maybe he should take it a little bit more seriously, which is why maybe I didn't put him higher. But like, dude, I just love the way he plays. When he's on the field, uh, as a former lineman myself, I love the way he blocks. Like, it's almost like having an extra tackle out there. Like, I mean, it's completely different. He's still a tight end, but dude, like, he knows how to block, and he finishes blocks. And then not only that, like, he's a great, passing game threat. And you know, I think it's just been awesome to watch him on this team, like for the past couple of years. So
Yeah.
I will forever be grateful for his contributions.
Absolutely, and I can't blame you.
Yeah.
So now my number 2.
Your number 2?
My number 2 favorite Niner. I feel like you have a good idea of probably one of the guys that I'm going to say, right?
Well, I have a feeling that one of these next 2 is going to be George Kittle.
Okay. Interesting. My number 2 is Christian McCaffrey.
All right.
And I mean, this is like one of those outside looking in things. Like, for you, having Christian McCaffrey lower than 2 makes sense because he's only been on the team for a year, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, as a Niner fan, it's like, oh man, I enjoy the shit out of McCaffrey, but I have probably more of a developed care and appreciation towards a George Kittle and some of these other guys, you know. But McCaffrey's been in the league for a while, and just, I mean, again, you know, we're both fantasy football players, so, you know, a lot of the times I see his highlights, but sometimes I just see his stats and I'm like, fuck, this dude is him, you know? And then he comes to the Niners.
I'm him. No, it's I'm here.
I'm here. Yeah. Oh, dude. Then McCaffrey comes to the Niners, and maybe it wasn't his first game, but I think it might have been his second game. It was against the Rams, I think. He runs for a touchdown, he catches a touchdown, and he passes a touchdown, right?
Yeah.
Like, this dude, and I'm not expecting him to throw many touchdowns, but, like, he fucking can.
He can do
That's
it
the
all.
point. He's just, it's insane. Another player, again, these top 3 guys for me are just players that I'm like, I just appreciate watching them as football players. But also, like you mentioned, his personality is top notch, you know, for an athlete.
Well, I mean, not necessarily his personality is top notch, but his professionalism.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
that, yeah, because I was going to say, like, there's not really a perfect personality to have, but yes, that, in that way to put it, yes, his professionalism is, like, perfect.
It's top tier.
Yeah.
Second to probably none. So that was your number 2. It's my turn to give my number 2.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So my number 2 is gonna be Nick Bosa. No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm going Nick Bosa with my second favorite Niner. Nick Bosa, just like, you know, I know I mentioned Fred Warner earlier, how it's like just a joy to like watch him run all over the field. Nick Bosa just takes that to a whole nother level. I feel like, for me, like, he is just relentless on the pass rush. He always comes into camp healthy and in shape. I never question whether or not that, you know, he's going to regress or anything. I always think that he's going to come as good, if not better, than the season prior. And, you know, it's just to see the way that he gets after the quarterback is, you know, incredible. And he's a pass rusher that the 49ers haven't had for like a very long time. And it has been, you know, it's just fun to watch. And then, like, he'll sack a quarterback, he'll get up, and, you know, he's just like, well, I don't know, you know, like, it's
just a typical Sunday.
Yeah. What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
It's like, nah, dude. I think he's honestly hilarious. Like, you know, there's he doesn't say a lot, but he speaks his mind, you know, and I don't think he's like afraid to really, you know, do anything. Like, you know, he's an alpha, you know, and like, one of the memories that I kind of have of him that just like kind of makes me crack up was when the Niners were practicing at a local high school against the Green Bay Packers for the playoffs. You know, the divisional round, when it was like going to be all snowing and everything. Or that might have been wild card. No, it was divisional. It was divisional. In 2021, and Nick Bosa, like fucking, he just started taking a piss. Like, he didn't go to the bathroom. He's like at practice and just starts like fucking, pissing in a corner, and it just like, that's something that like, just, it's hilarious, dude, because it's just him, and like people were upset about it, but it's like, dude, it's just like when you gotta go, you gotta go, and if there's no bathrooms, like, I mean, maybe it's not that funny to some people, but like to me, it's just hilarious. Like he gives no shits. Like, oh, they're welcoming us into this high school. Yeah, I'm just gonna piss in their bushes.
Yeah. Again, he's a total meathead.
Yeah, and yeah, I don't know. Like he, he's just. I just love watching him play.
Yep. So Josh, my number one.
Well, should I try and guess it?
Yeah.
Okay, so your five have been
Brock Purdy, Deebo Samuel, Nick Bosa, Christian McCaffrey. Number one is who?
It's not Fred Warner.
All right. Yeah. No, it's not.
Is it? No, it's not Trent Williams. Is it Trent Williams?
No, it's George Kittle.
Oh, duh, dude.
Yeah, come on.
Oh my god. I thought you said Kittle already for whatever reason, because I forgot that you said McCaffrey. Yeah, I said one of your next two is going to be George Kittle. I know that.
Yeah, and I said interesting, trying to throw you off.
Yeah, it's 104 right now, so.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. George Kittle, dude.
Sorry.
No, it's not your fault. Shit. George Kittle, dude. I think I have a thing for tight ends because a tight end is kind of the reason that I'm a football fan. And I just think like versatility has kind of been the thing in this podcast that we've talked about. And I think tight ends are one of the most versatile positions because if they're great, like George Kittle, if they're all around like George Kittle, they'll line up on the end of the line and they'll fucking block, and they will block good, or
the good tight ends will block good.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, if they're all around and great, like George Kittle. But they will also be able to split out or from on the outside of the line, run a route, catch the ball, run through two guys, stiff arm a third guy on fourth down, and carry another guy on his back and like do everything he can. Like these dudes just fucking, they just live, breathe, sleep football. Like tight ends are hilarious to me. But George Kittle, his personality is hilarious, and the way he plays on the field is not hilarious. Like it is some of the meanest football, but then once the play's over and the whistle's blown, he's just like a fucking teddy bear with a pull string with jokes, like I don't know how to describe him. It's just,
well, even during the play, like he'll pancake someone, and then he'll just he'll be laughing while pancaking someone,
Yeah. But I really do wholeheartedly believe that the past couple of years he hasn't been perfectly healthy, but my statement would be that when healthy, he is one of the top 10 players in football, period. And I appreciate watching him. The way that he blocks, the way that he's full intensity every single play, the way that he can go out there and catch a one-handed catch, fucking run through 3 different guys. It doesn't matter if you're a linebacker. He might run through a defensive lineman. Like, I wouldn't put it past him. He probably has. He's a mean, I wouldn't say he's a do-it-all tight end. Like, it's not like he's super fast, but you get the ball in his hands and he's going in a straight line. He's running, you know. But I wouldn't want to be the guy that has to stand there and take the hit from him, you know, because he's going to do everything he can to get through that guy.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, he plays like a wrestler. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, that's exactly how he fucking plays.
Yes.
And it's hella cool. Like, it's
Yeah.
awesome. He really
Yeah.
embraces that.
Mhm.
You said you have him, if he's healthy, as a top 10 player in the NFL.
Yeah.
Do you also have Travis Kelce there?
No, because Travis Kelce isn't the blocker that George Kittle is. I think that when George Kittle is healthy, he is the best tight end in football because I think he can do the physical things that Kelce can. Maybe where Kelce differs is that Kelce is more cerebral, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the sense that he seems to know every gaping hole
in the defense.
in a zone in a defense. Yeah, he will find it and he will use that to his and Patrick Mahomes' advantage. And he's a fucking exceptional pass catcher, Travis Kelce, and a great route runner, you know. But I just think the things that George Kittle can do, George Kittle can do those things in the zone. I don't think he does it nearly as much as Kelce, but I think he can. So that points me in Kittle's direction, you know.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's. I know it's super late. You got work in the morning.
Number one.
You probably know my number one.
I'm worried that I know your number one.
Yeah. Okay. So I know you're worried. And I mean, this is going to be crazy. This is going to sound absolutely insane to a lot of people, to a lot of Niner fans. Because I would say that even probably supporters of this player, I mean, maybe they're not his favorite. You know, he's not one of their favorite players. I'm going with Trey Lance, and here's my reason why. I'm in love with the mystery of this kid. It's the mystery box. I know what every other player on the 49ers can give me. You know, the 49ers, like we mentioned earlier, they traded up for this kid, and they still haven't really given him that real opportunity. They ran him into the ground, and what I really like is that he always seems to be working really hard, and he's been working really hard all off season to, you know, perfect his mechanics. You know, the players and you know, the coaches say that Trey is the best that he's ever looked. You know, he's made a significant jump. I think it's very admirable that even when he's not getting supported, and you know, the team has essentially turned their back on him, that he still embraces the 49ers and hasn't turned his back on them. And I think, you know, I think he's gifted physically. And clearly the 49ers thought he was also gifted physically. And I've been waiting since they drafted him for him to really get a chance. I really think that he will be good. And, you know, it'll take some time. But if you give him some time to develop, if you just give Lance a chance, I really think that he can show that he's special.
That's a slogan right there. Give Lance a chance.
Yeah, or let Lance dance. But I mean, I really like his personality. Like he's even interesting. Like when it comes to like the press conferences. And yeah, I think that, you know, aside from I guess there was a video of him making it rain on like a girl giving him a lap dance. Like I mean, that's his personal life. I'm sure all these NFL players are doing the same thing. They're just like, don't have friends that are recording them constantly. He's young, he's figuring it out. Like, I think, it's just it's the vibe that I get from him. He's younger than me. That's what's crazy. Everybody else on this list is older than me. And then Lance, number one, I don't know. He's just, there's something about him. And like I said, my list is prone to change. And maybe he won't be my favorite, coming up. And I think it's fair game to talk about some honorable mentions.
Did you say Trey Lance was at a club and he's younger than you? Throwing money at strippers. Sorry.
No. I'm just, like I said, I'm in love with the mystery. So I've been for 2 years really just excited to see what he can do. And I don't feel like I've ever gotten that. And it's been driving me crazy. And so I guess he's my favorite because he's the one that I'm most excited to learn about.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I definitely understand your feeling. And I honestly respect that you can put it out there that he's your favorite player, because you have such strong feelings towards the mystery of Trey Lance, essentially. And the reason why I can identify with that is because I remember when Derek Carr was drafted, the hope and desire for him to be the best thing ever was insane, because I was in 2014. I was maybe a freshman in high school. I don't know. No, I was in high school. I was like a sophomore or junior. But anyways, like as a Raider fan, until Derek Carr, I've never seen a great quarterback, like a top 5 in the league quarterback, play for the Raiders. And I was hoping so desperately for that to be Derek Carr. And sometimes I think I would root for him, and I think a lot of fans for Derek Carr now, still, and maybe until this year, were rooting so hard for him that he was, this, I don't know how to exactly describe it, but he was their favorite player and they were just blind to the things that he was doing wrong. And I'm not trying to make this a negative thing about what you're saying. I've been there. Like I was like all in on Derek Carr, and I was like, he's going to be great. He's going to be great. Yada, yada, yada. I'm not trying to make this into a negative. I swear. I get the feeling, and it gets to the point where it's like, that's all that matters. Essentially, not that's all that matters, but it gets to the point where it's like, I almost need this player to be great because he is my favorite, and if he is great, he will take us to massive heights. So I get the feeling.
All right. I really want him to succeed because I think it's in the Niners' best interest. If they throw him out there and he shows no improvement over just like give him like 8 games, shows no improvement. I know it's really hard to find 8 games to just throw away in the NFL. I understand that. But why the hell would you draft him in the first place with 3 first-round picks? I mean, I'm just going to keep saying it. That's what they did. You got me a jersey. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The Yorks made hell of fucking money off this kid. And they're just going to bury him after 4 games. Like, come on. Like,
yeah.
And then I guess, like, I've already kind of said what I wanted to say about Lance. It's like, if he to me gets, I think, the chance that I feel he he's earned or is earning right now by the hard work that he's put in, and that like all the players are saying he's the best that he's looked. If he just goes out there and is not it, after like, I say eight games is fair. Or if he just sucks throughout like 5 games, 4 games, and there's no hope for him, then one will learn 2 things. Shanahan's offense isn't necessarily quarterback friendly to everybody. And then 2, we will have found out Trey Lance is the biggest bust in NFL history. And I will be the first person to say, you know what? He's just not good. You know what I mean? But with the way that things currently have been constructed and all the circumstances that I take into account when thinking about this situation, it's not just black or white whether he's good or not. It's literally he has not been given a chance, and they need to let him dance.
There you go. I was gonna say one last thing about Trey Lance, as far as like how I kind of can see and feel similar to you. Trey Lance as a prospect is almost exactly what I hope the Raiders eventually go for. I've been saying for years now that I want the Raiders to draft a quarterback. I don't care how high in the first round. Probably has to be a top 5 pick. I want them to draft a guy that is essentially the perfect mix, and this is in a perfect world, but something close to the perfect mix between Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. Maybe throw in a little Patrick Mahomes, right? Mm-hmm. If you give me somebody who you can say is a mix of at least 2 of those guys, that's what I think the Raiders need. And if you look at the prospect of Trey Lance, he is one of those guys, right? Mm-hmm. He came in exceptionally raw with not much playing time, super young. It was going to take time, and maybe this year or next year Shanahan pulls it out and he was a genius this whole time. But him being on this rookie contract, if he does prove it and he does become the guy, he's going to earn himself so much money. It's going to be like Jimmy Garoppolo all over again, where it's like, wow, 5 games, maybe hopefully a full season or a season and a half or 2 seasons, but still, wow, we only got that long of him on a cheap contract. Now we have to pay him top dollar, yada, yada, yada. But at least hopefully he'll become that guy. But now that you guys have Purdy in the way, it's going to be tough, but I think the opportunity is there for him.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's one thing I will say. The issue is not about paying quarterbacks. I think the issue is about paying the wrong quarterbacks money. And if Trey Lance ends out proving that he is in the Mahomes, the Jalen Hurts, the Lamar Jackson, the Josh Allen tier, he'll be worth every penny if they pay him.
Yeah.
But let's just say he's a step ahead of Jimmy Garoppolo and they fucking pay him top dollar. Like, I'm sorry, but like, that to me is stupid. And he won't be a franchise guy if that's all he's ever going to be.
Yeah. I should clarify. I said I've always, or not always, but I've been wanting a quarterback that's the perfect mix of Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. That guy is Jalen Hurts, and the Eagles got him in the second round. If the Raiders ever got a quarterback like Jalen Hurts in the second round, you would never hear the end of it. Not you specifically, but just everybody. Like, mm-hmm. That's such a huge win for a team. They almost won the championship,
mm-hmm.
Super Bowl.
Yeah. And then that's another thing. Trey Lance's numbers are almost identical, just a little bit better than Jalen Hurts' numbers in their first 4 starts. So the Eagles could have just said, you know what, we're giving up. We're giving up on Jalen Hurts. He's not the guy. And they could have just struggled to find another quarterback for another couple of years. But now they have a guy that they are confident, can run the franchise for at least another couple of years. I don't know if Jalen Hurts is a franchise quarterback, like he's going to last that long. But as long as he's athletic, he's going to be tough for defenses to hold down.
I look at I just spoiled it. I look at Jalen Hurts like a upgrade to Russell Wilson in his prime. But look at Russell Wilson now. Like, now that he's not the mobile, sack evading quarterback, he's fallen off. I can see some of that for Jalen Hurts, but I don't know, man. I think Jalen Hurts is better, than Russell Wilson at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Hurts is clearly better than Russell Wilson at this point. Also, my AirPods are low, so
yeah, we'll get this going. Also, another thing, like for Trey Lance is look at Josh Allen. Those first 2 years, it was like, I don't know, and then all of a sudden, boom! Like, I could see that for Trey Lance. So, quick honorable mentions: Trent Williams and I hope I say this right, Talanoa Funga.
Oh yeah,
those are my honorable mentions.
They're both honorable mentions for me as well.
And then also, you were gonna say something about Debo.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah. So you were saying how you admire Debo. I left Debo off my list. I like Debo, and he's one of my top 10 favorite players on the team, but I just can't put him in top 5 right now because part of me is still kind of salty the way the last offseason kind of went and how the season kind of went with Debo. Because he was holding out with the team similar to what Jacobs is doing right now, and he wanted to be traded, and then he was kind of throwing this fit over his contract, and he got paid big time. And I personally feel like you can replace receivers. But Debo's like one of those one of a kind versatile players. So like I kind of understand that, but I mean he got fucking paid, and he was just not ready this year. Like he had a couple games where he flashed, but he wasn't like in 2021. Like I feel like he kind of came out of shape, and I think Debo kind of admitted that he won't ever put like stuff like that on film again. So it's not just me saying that about Debo. It's Debo also like admitting that he didn't meet his standards. So
yeah, I think the interesting thing about Debo and what you just said is like in 2021 he proved how irreplaceable he is, and then in 2022 he proved how replaceable he is.
Mm-hmm. Oh, with McCaffrey.
Well, yeah, but also like okay, Debo is a kind of a running back in a wide receiver's body, or maybe I should put that the other way around, but I'm too tired. But if you you don't even have to take that away. Just like, is he a special route runner? I don't think so. Is he a great pass catcher? I don't think he's the best in the world, but he's good. Obviously, he's a great wide receiver. But I don't know. I don't think he does anything other than being able to run the ball out of the backfield. That's like, oh my God, he is so special as a wide receiver. It's more of like he brings something different to the position. Bless you. But I didn't
happen. No. No. I mean, I will say that Debo's a pretty good route, like wide receiver in terms of like route running and stuff. He drops a lot of balls. So I won't say that he's like really good. He's pretty good when it comes to, what I just said. But when you give Deebo Samuel the ball in open space, there's no player that I would rather have the ball in their hands. When he gets the ball, he'll run over people. He's just so hard to tackle. He plays like a real life Deebo, like from Friday.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Honorable mentions. Another one I just wanted to say, Brock Purdy. I just cut him out of the top 5.
That's right.
So I'm not only a Trey Lance guy. I don't want anybody to just think that I don't like Purdy. I really like Purdy. I like his personality. He's very humble. I love Purdy, and his story. You really can't make a better story than well, I guess if he would have won the Super Bowl, but his story still was just like magnificent, and he was an honor to watch, and I look forward to seeing how his career moves forward from just the successful season that he had.
Yeah, I think I remember us kind of vaguely talking about the idea of this topic for a show. And I remember you saying that you thought you were going to have both quarterbacks in your top 5.
I thought about it. Yeah, and so I kind of went back and forth on a couple players, and I ended up with, I was like, I kind of feel like I have to have Fred Warner on there. And then, like, honestly, there was a point in time where I didn't have Kittle on my list, but I was like, nah, you know what? I really do appreciate like what Kittle did. You know what I mean? And I felt like, I don't know. Yeah, it's just, making a list like this is really tough. I stand by what I said about the players, and I'm willing to support both quarterbacks going forward, and both of them still, even if Purdy's not in my top 5 favorite, both of them are some of my favorite players on the team. Some of my favorite players in the NFL period. So, and I think there was one more honorable mention for my favorites, and I think we said Trent Williams already. Oh, Brandon Ayuk. I like Ayuk.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I think he's a great route runner, and I think we're ready to move on to the Raiders.
Yeah.
All right. So
I'm so curious who your favorite player is, and your first.
I'm really excited. I mean, this is kind of I'm selling the next show. I'm really excited for you to hear my top 5 Raiders of all time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
or top 5 favorite Raiders of all time.
Right.
I think another video could be like top 5 period, like the best.
Yeah.
But my number 5 is Hunter Renfrow.
Okay.
And I just really love the way that Renfrow runs his routes. He's like, to me, like a mini Cooper Kupp. And one play that really stands out to me is the play against the Chargers, where it was a fake punt, and Renfrow realized it early on, and Renfrow came charging in, and he hit stuck the receiver and prevented a conversion.
I lost my goddamn mind when I saw that. I lost my mind. That's one of my favorite plays of all time, period. Continue.
No, it was such a high IQ play. And then, like I said before, Renfro's just got great control over his body. And, he may be traded pretty soon, but I like him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of simmering down on the whole trade idea. I think for them to keep him as long as they have this offseason, I don't see why they would. But maybe the occasion arises. We'll see. But I think if you have him going into training camp, it's like, why would you fucking trade him? Anyways,
Yeah, I mean, it just really depends on like trade offers and everything. But I would think that they would keep him just for Garoppolo.
I think he
Like,
fits so well. Yeah.
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 All right. You're number 5.
I think I told you off screen that I was excited to tell you my number 5 player for the Raiders. Something like
Is
that,
it Brian
right?
Hoyer?
I was,
No.
but I was excited to tell you, like, to get your reaction to my number 5 Raider.
Okay.
I looked this roster up and down. Let me start off by saying when we lost 2 guys this offseason that would have clearly been on this list, which would have been either Derek Carr or
I think I know who it is.
Darren Waller. Who do you think it is?
I think it's Jimmy Garoppolo.
This is such a genuine reaction. It's like
it was a good guess. No, Michael Mayer.
No, I can't put a rookie. So, like, I mean, this is, I guess, but this is considering, like, having history with this player. For me, for the outside looking in, you might just like a guy because he's good at fantasy or something. For me, it's like, I like them because they're a great Raider, right?
Mm-hmm.
Number 5 is Daniel Carlson, the fucking kicker.
That's very interesting.
This dude is fucking money. He, dude, he damn near does not miss, and it probably helps that he plays in an indoor or a stadium. But I couldn't believe immediately the first year that he was with us, and this was, I think, dating back to Oakland. Just immediately was kicking money shot after money shot, and I'm like, dude. And he's stuck around for, this is at least his second contract now with us, and I cannot complain about Daniel Carlson. I think he's great. I had him on my fantasy team last year, and I benefited greatly from that. And that's definitely not a big reason for why he's on my list. It's just literally I was looking at this roster and I had my top 4, and then I was looking for a 5th, and I was like, what the fuck? And yeah, it came down to a kicker, and I'm honestly happy with it.
It's not a bad pick, dude.
No, I think it is a good pick.
It was a good pick.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see on the all-time list. We might see another kicker.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little hint, but we might not.
Mm-hmm. So I think I know who your next 4 are.
It's in some order, probably, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So number 4 for me is Josh Jacobs.
Okay.
And I just really love the way that Josh Jacobs runs the ball. He runs, pretty hard, and like you said, he was the leading rusher last year. And I never had him in fantasy, but just seeing the way that he jumped, and like had that leap from 2021 to 2022. It's like, he's just kind of been like on a steady rise, I feel like. And I kind of feel like he's underrated a little bit.
Yeah. But, no, I think so.
Yeah. I mean, he's just he in a way kind of reminds me of Frank Gore a little bit. But I mean, 2 completely different players.
Yeah.
But I also, what prompted me to pick Josh Jacobs was I really like his backstory. How he was once homeless, and so he had to really overcome some adversity in his life to be where he's at right now, and I really admire that. And while I don't necessarily think that teams should pay running backs, I fully I fully support Josh Jacobs for pursuing his, the money that he's earned.
Yep.
So I salute Josh Jacobs, and I kick it off to you.
Okay, that was your number 4, right?
It's my number 4.
Yeah. Yeah, though, I mean, the one thing I'll add to that is, like, way earlier in this podcast, actually, at the beginning, I mentioned Saquon Barkley and how it seemed like the coverage on his contract is getting way more literally coverage than Josh Jacobs. And that's because Saquon Barkley's the big name, and for some reason, Josh Jacobs is not.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the now defending rushing title holder in the NFL, and he should be treated with a little bit more. I wouldn't say respect, but like you know,
A little bit more praise than he gets. He's like,
praise and
like
attention,
if you're thinking attention, yeah. Like if you're thinking about like top tier running backs in the NFL, like I don't know why I kind of feel like people have this vibe over Josh Jacobs, but like let's just say you're naming off like Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, you go down the list of like elite players, and like if somebody mentions Josh Jacobs, I don't know why he kind of gets treated like the socks and underwear of like elite running backs. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's like, oh, I'm glad to have this. I appreciate this player, but he's not as cool as the other guys.
Yeah. I just realized something that I will say when it eventually happens. Sorry, I was paying attention. I'll get back to it. My number 4. This is my number 4, right? Yeah. Hunter Renfrow. And I can honestly say that Hunter Renfrow could have easily been my number 2. It's kind of that close, but the more I thought about it, the more I was like, it probably isn't. I think in a different way, similar to Deebo Samuel, I think Hunter Renfrow had a down year this past season. He also had an injury-riddled season that really hindered him, and like it didn't make me think differently of him. It's just that I didn't look at him as this like should be Pro Bowl type receiver. It was more of like, okay, he's not like, a year or two ago, he was like our number 1 receiving target for Derek Carr, and he got over 1,000 yards. I don't know how many touchdowns, but he was great. And I was like, dude, he can do it. And then, it's like, no, he's a slot receiver. I'm not trying to diminish him, dude. Like you said, that play against the Chargers where he was the punt returner and he just fucking lit the dude up to make him not catch the ball right on the line to gain. It was like a thing of fucking beauty. Again, well, I mean, that's not something you expect for a receiver to be like that versatile, but again, versatility, and just being smart. Like he's a smart player. And like you mentioned, like you and I have talked about this, he has such insane body control. Like some receivers or players have certain things about their game that is so specific and special. And to me, Hunter Renfrow's special attribute is his body control. Like he's not overly shifty. He's not super fast. It's just once he gets the ball, it's his body control and his field awareness. He can quickly gauge who is where and what move he needs to make one guy miss. And it makes a huge difference. It goes from a 3-yard gain to a 8-yard gain. Easy. And I do think he's underrated, but I also think that, he's coming off of a down year, and I'm just curious to see what happens, But I fucking adore him as a player and as a Raider. So.
All right.
And and also like somewhat similar, but not quite like Christian McCaffrey, his professionalism is, and just personality is just like top notch. Continue.
I haven't like really dug into Renfro's professionalism or personality that much. I just based on the way he plays. This is the reason why I chose him at number 5.
Yeah.
My number 3, and I might want to flip flop my number 3 and my number 2. But my number 3 is Max Crosby. Yeah. I think Max Crosby, he's an elite pass rusher. He's very quick and shifty. He kind of reminds me of Nick Bosa, but I would say quicker and maybe less powerful and than Bosa. But he's still, he gets after quarterbacks as well. And I think it's really cool that Max Crosby, he took a team-friendly deal when it was his time to get paid. He's getting paid good money, but I feel like he could have gotten more money. If I'm just being honest, he could have probably gotten a couple more million per year out of the Raiders, and he didn't. And I also just admire his story about being sober. And it's pretty inspirational, and for that, Max Crosby has my respect.
Yeah, I think again, if Darren Waller was still on this roster, he would. It would make it a lot more hard for me because there would have been 6 guys if you include Derek Carr. I wouldn't know how to rank them, and chances are it might be Renfro that isn't on my top 5. And Waller and Carr, replace him at Carlson. But yeah, I agree on Crosby. I'll say, for a comparison, I really look at Crosby and I see the second coming of Jared Allen from the Vikings.
I thought you were going to say the second coming of Jesus Christ.
Well, for the Raiders,
I was like, wow, that's very deep, Mike.
Yeah.
You really like Max Crosby.
I sure do. But I mean, you could see that, right? Jared Allen. You remember Jared Allen?
Jared Allen.
His sack celebration was he would get on one knee and he would go like this. He would like that and then like that.
Maybe if I saw it.
Yeah, he was number 69 for the Vikings.
Maybe.
He was a fucking animal. He was just nonstop motor. Fucking just destroy offensive linemen. And 10 plus sacks for 6 years in a row or some shit. He was great. So then that means it's my turn for my number 3, right?
It is.
My number 3 and my number 2, literally as you were saying things during this podcast, I was still alternating my number 3 and my number 2.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go with what's on my notes right now.
Yeah.
But by week 4, it could change, Yeah. Number 3 is Josh Jacobs. And, yeah, I mean, I adore Josh Jacobs. We've talked a lot about him on this podcast. And obviously, I hope he stays with the Raiders. I mean, he's one of my top 3 favorite Raiders. He's always ran hard. I loved his tape coming out of college. I was just like, dude, he had a play against, I think it was Georgia, but it might have been somebody else, where he just lowered his head and just fucking destroyed a guy to get into the end zone. I was just like, oh my God. And then there was his rookie year, he had some sensational highlight plays that wouldn't make it on ESPN, but when you're watching it live, you just go, oh my God. The way he runs through dudes, he just lowers his fucking head, hits the dude with the shoulder. and just fucking blows him back 5 yards.
And one thing I wanted to say, since we're on the topic of Josh Jacobs, is I know I made the Frank Gore comparison earlier, and I think part of the reason why I made that comparison, less about maybe their play style, but more about like how under the radar they, the players kind of go.
Yeah.
Frank Gore, I felt like was, a little underappreciated.
He's a Hall of
his entire
Famer.
career. Yeah.
Frank Gore's a Hall of Famer easily, statistically, and nobody would think that just from the name.
But he was kind of like, shadowed behind Adrian Peterson for like all those years. And
yeah. There were so many other players, big name guys, that it was it was hard for him to really shine, but it was like every single week I think that was the thing. He never had like a big spike game. It was like every week Frank Gore was just like perfectly consistent, every single week.
For like 16 years.
Yeah. And the thing that my stepdad is a big Niner fan. For the viewers, you already know that, but
yeah, me too.
Josh, you already know that. Yeah. But and the thing that he said about Frank Gore that like is 100% true is that Frank Gore would always fall forward every play.
Mm-hmm.
Like it didn't matter how many dudes hit him, he was gaining a yard. Like that was just something that always stuck with me. I was like, yeah, like, and I would watch and pay attention. It's like, yeah, he does.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't say the same about Josh Jacobs, but Josh Jacobs is an exceptional runner, and again, I appreciate the fuck out of him. And he's always ran hard for the Raiders. And, there were times where he had like injured ribs and shit, and he was still out there. Or I think it was his shoulder. He popped a dude against the Packers, led with his shoulder. He might have dislocated his shoulder. That was his rookie season. It was like week 7. Played the rest of the season. Maybe he missed one game, but he played through that shit, and he was like the bell cow,
Mm-hmm.
It's like shit like that where it's like, yeah, dude, that's what I'm talking about. And then again, being the league's leading rusher last season, like, it's just awesome.
Mm-hmm. So, my number 2, we're on number 2 right now, right?
Yes,
my number 2, and like I said, part of me would probably swap this with number 3. My number 2 is Davante Adams.
Oh my god. Okay, I know what you're doing here. Continue.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I really can't thank Davante Adams enough for helping me win a fantasy championship. I don't know if you have that beautiful trophy in the background, but I will win it back. Oh my.
There he is, right there.
Did you miss me? No. All right. I don't remember if Davante helped me win 1 or 2 championships, but I just think, in all seriousness, it's crazy how dominant Davante Adams is as a route runner, and he makes those contested catches, and he's just he's fun to watch, and I don't really have much else to say, but thank you, Davante.
I'll be quick on my number 2 as well because it's also Davante Adams. The one specific thing, because we talked about him earlier, and he's a special receiver. I think he's the top receiver in football, period.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a San Jose State football game against Fresno State with my uncle back in 2013, and Derek Carr was the quarterback, and the guy that I wanted to see live in person, other than Derek Carr at quarterback, was Davante Adams, because I'm pretty sure he led all of college football receivers in touchdowns. And I remember, him coming out of college and hoping that he would fall to the Raiders in the 3rd round so that they could get Derek Carr and Davante Adams. and he goes, I believe, in the late second round to the Packers. And I was like, all right, well, I hope he does good, you know. And then he goes to the Packers, and he's sitting behind, I think, still Greg Jennings. I might be wrong. Definitely Jordy Nelson, and those sorts of guys, Randall Cobb. And it was like, fuck, he's kind of buried, you know, on this roster. And then finally, a couple of those guys kind of age out. And then it was like, oh, Devontae Adams is like the third receiver. And I remember it was like late in the season, he had a game against like the Bears or something where out of nowhere he caught like 11 passes, 160 yards, and like 2 touchdowns. And it was like, oh shit, nice, you know? And then the next season, maybe late the next season, he just started fucking taking off with Aaron Rodgers. And it was like, never looked back. Best
Never
receiver in
looked
football.
back. Yep.
So, yeah, I've had a long history with Devontae Adams. In fact, I will say one more thing. Remember, and this is kind of funny, but whatever. We played franchise mode on Madden together in the same connected franchise mode, right? And it was the off season, or we played our season,
Yes.
and then we went into the off season. I told you, I was like, I'm telling you, dude, Devontae Adams would be a Raider. Like I'm gonna trade for Devontae Adams in Madden because I'm guaranteeing you this is realistic. Because I hate playing franchise mode and like blowing up the team and trading for Lamar Jackson and like making it my way. Like I want it to feel realistic because it's simulated football, right? I want it to feel real. I want it to. That's how it's fun to me, you know.
Oh, dude, the new.
To
I
feel like you
actually,
earned the win. Go ahead.
yeah, I actually think they released a new trailer for the new Madden today, and stuff they're improving actually looked pretty good. So I was actually, shocked, but maybe by next year's Madden, that stuff won't even look that impressive. But
Yeah.
the blocking looked much better. I think that was and then the player models looked better. So that was definitely something that enticed me. Is it okay if I move on to number one?
Yes, sir.
My number one is Daniel Carlson. No, I'm just playing. My number one is Jimmy Pornstar Garoppolo.
Yeah, I knew. Okay, that's when I was laughing on like your number 4. I was like thinking in my head like, who the fuck are his top 3? Because I couldn't even find a 5th person other than a fucking kicker. And then I go, oh my god, it's Jimmy G, dude.
Yeah. It's Jimmy G, and it has really little to do with anything about the Raiders. Just the fact that he's on the Raiders. There was a point in time where Jimmy Garoppolo was my favorite player, even over George Kittle. As much as it was already like time for the Niners and Jimmy Garoppolo to part ways, I still really like him. And I can honestly say that he's the player on the Raiders that I'm most excited to watch this season. I think I mentioned it earlier, but I want to see what Jimmy is like without Kyle Shanahan. And, at this point in his career, and I want to see if he can lead a team, without Kyle Shanahan or like, a great supporting cast. I'm just very interested by that, because like I want to see him, succeed. Like I think it would be like I know that kind of sounds like stupid to say as a 49er fan, because it's like, why would you want him to succeed if he's no longer on the team? Or, why didn't you want him, to succeed while he was on the team? I did want him to succeed while he was on the team. I just, with the investment that they made in the other quarterback that I spent like already an hour talking about earlier, I didn't think that Jimmy Garoppolo would be able to deliver the Super Bowl that we needed. But that doesn't mean that Jimmy Garoppolo can't deliver a positive experience for the Raiders and the Raider fans. I found, I have like various like fond memories of the Jimmy Garoppolo era. And even though he wasn't a perfect quarterback or anywhere near a perfect quarterback, he ushered in a winning culture, because before before him they were like 1-10, and then they finished the season 6-10 when he started. When he started, so he finished 5-0. Obviously, got that big payday. But I think Raider fans can get excited about the possibility of Jimmy Garoppolo establishing a different culture in the locker room, and it'll be something a little bit different than you guys have had like over the past couple of years.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, yeah, the Derek Carr era is over, and that that's kind of sad, but in a way you can kind of appreciate something new. And whether things improve in the win and loss column or not, you're signing up for a whole different experience.
Yeah, I mean, the way that you talk about Jimmy G definitely does excite me to see how it goes, because I think, like you said, what matters. I don't expect him to win us a fucking Super Bowl, but I do look at him as like a pretty damn good bridge quarterback, which is kind of in a way similar to how I felt about Derek Carr the past season or two. But I feel like Derek Carr's the better quarterback. But like you say, Garoppolo might provide the better cultural experience for the team, and perhaps in that provide a positive that the team needs, leading towards the future. And I know there are a lot of Raider fans who have just over time, and you can't blame them, I definitely don't blame them, have become absolutely impatient with the idea of like, oh, really another bridge quarterback, or like, really we have to wait 3 more years for a new regime to like figure it out, blah, 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 to like become Super Bowl contenders. I get it, but like, if they do it right, it's like, it's a matter of, okay, would you rather, and again, this is all theoretical and nothing's perfect, and knowing the Raiders, it won't be perfect, but like, would you rather them get it right and become the next Kansas City Chiefs? Or would you rather be, let's just say the Philadelphia Eagles don't go back to the Super Bowl the next 10 years. Would you rather be the Philadelphia Eagles for a year or be the Chiefs for 10 years? I know I'd rather be the fucking Chiefs. So you got to do things right to get to that point. It takes fucking development. So it's a system. You got to build the system.
Yeah.
And he will help do that.
Yeah. And then, he can establish a culture, I feel like. And I mean, unless the Raiders are just so fucked and stuck in their like, in their ways, you know what I mean? But he's the next. I mean, I wouldn't say Jimmy would be like the face of the franchise for the Raiders, but like the quarterback is typically like always like the face of the team. But I've seen teams where it's not about the quarterback. Like my headset just died. Give me 1 second.
You're good. I mean, a team that isn't isn't centric on the quarterback might be like
the 49ers.
Yeah, but the quarterback's so interesting to them. I think maybe really looking back it'd be like, no.
Oh,
really looking back, it'd be like the Ravens with Dilfer or the Buccaneers with Brad Johnson. I think recently, maybe just because I pay attention so much, I'd say a team might be like, man, what's a playoff team that made it to like, really? They made it?
They made it to what? Sorry.
To the playoffs, like maybe fuck, I feel like I'm taking too long on this. Like, I know I get your point, and I don't know. I can't think of a current example of a team that's like the quarterback isn't a like top 3 face on the team,
Well,
or a big reason why they made the playoffs, I guess. I don't know.
the 49ers.
Yeah, but then Brock Purdy, it's like he became the face of the Niners the end of last season. Easily.
Yeah. A
I'd
team.
say I would say like the Steelers didn't make the playoffs, but Kenny Pickett is in the face of that team. You know?
Okay. Is your criteria a top 3 player on the team?
No, I guess just like a top 3 like popular pop
Okay.
culture, if you will.
The Rams, when they won the Super Bowl, technically, I would say that Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald, and Jalen Ramsey were all more popular than Matt Stafford.
Yeah. I mean that's solid. Yeah. I would say yeah, no, that's a good one because like if Jimmy G were successful, I'd say he'd be about the same popularity as Stafford, if not actually more, because he's got like the pretty face and all that, you know.
I've got a great example, but it's not a playoff team. It was
Yeah.
almost a playoff team. The Detroit Lions,
Yes.
the
Yes.
Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah. Although I would say Gino might have become kind of a face because it's like, dude, Gino, holy fuck. But yes, Goff is the perfect example. Yes. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
No,
yeah,
let's analyze more, Mike. No, I'm just
I
kidding.
was just
It's
gonna, yeah,
2 a.m.
fuck me.
Sorry, Mike.
No, you're good. You're good. My number 1 is Max Crosby. That's not a shock.
Into maximum overdrive.
Maximum Overdrive. Yes, that is Max Crosby at all times, dude. I mean, I don't really have too much to say. I just appreciate this dude's motor. Like, I want every player on the Raiders. Like you said, you want every player to be a bully. I want every player on the Raiders to have a motor and drive and like literally a will to win, like Max Crosby has. He is the epitome of what I want a Raider to be. Period.
Yeah, I mean, I said what I said about Max Crosby, so I definitely have a lot of respect for him. So, I am
He's a fucking
inclined to
leader.
agree.
Yeah, he's a fucking leader, and he also leads by example, like to the
He is a
fullest
Raider.
degree.
He
Yeah.
does lead by example.
As far as
Honorable mentions.
honorable mentions, I actually don't have one. I would say the closest thing I have to an honorable mention right now is the punter, AJ Cole.
Mm-hmm.
Like looking at the roster, I hope for a guy like Nate Hobbs to become one of those honorable mentions. I hope for Tyree Wilson to quickly become a top 5 player for me. The first round pick, and Michael Mayer, I think that they should. After that, it's like, we'll fucking see, maybe Colton Miller, but
I would, when I think of Colton Miller, you know exactly what I think about.
Yeah.
And I'm so sorry to the viewers at home. I will never be able to disclose that, the reasoning behind that. It is a picture of Colton Miller, and that's all I have to say.
See, I was thinking of two things. It's either that picture that is heavily photoshopped,
Or the fact that every single time Colton Miller would get brought up, I would say Colton Miller was a steal at 15.
yeah,
Sarcastically, and then
yes,
Colton Miller turned out to be like a good draft pick.
yeah. Like all things considered, I don't know. I wouldn't put him as a steal, but like he was worth more than that 15th overall pick, I'd say.
No, I know, but I was just saying he was a steal at 15 because, like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
know you weren't excited about the pick at the time.
No. I wanted Derwin
And-
James so fucking bad. I wanted Derwin James. He goes like the pick after us to the Chargers, to our division rival. I was like, bro, oh my God. But left tackle is the more important position. And Derwin James, he's like a George Kittle, not to get off track, but he's like, when he's healthy, top
One of
10
the
player in the
best.
NFL. Yeah. But he's not always healthy. So,
Anyways, I think that's the end of the show. I would like to encourage everybody to please comment, like, and subscribe. We've been really enjoying interacting with you guys in the comment sections. If you have any thoughts about anything that we said in today's video or any future videos, please don't hesitate to comment. We really appreciate it. And we take the time to really read those and, think of thoughtful and insightful, replies. So, without further ado, I think we're done. Have a good night, Mike.
one thing, dude. We went into this episode
Thinking it was going to be an hour.
This is going to be our shortest episode. We don't even have that many topics to talk about. This is, again, just like the second episode, our longest episode. Our next episode is going to be 4 hours at this rate.
Yeah. So that's why when I asked you if you wanted to do the rankings, I think that might have been 2 hours ago. I don't even know, dude.
No, it might have been 1 hour ago.
Yeah.
1 hour.
But
still.
I think we would have been cool if we would have just like did all the rankings in one video. But I mean, splitting it up. Spoiler alert, next time we're doing another ranking video. As you can tell by the title of this stream, this is part 1.
Yeah.
I think part 2 should be the last of ranking our favorite players. And yeah. I mean, I got nothing else to say.
Yeah, I'd say our next episode will be part 2, and then after that, we should be getting pretty close to training camp, and then we'll be hearing more things and seeing more things. So, can't wait.
Well, with all that being said, God bless America.
And God bless the Raiders and Niners.